Am I the a-hole for ruining an engagement by revealing that I was SA'd by him 10 years ago? A little backstory is needed, so please stick with me. Growing up, I, F27, had a childhood friend, Angie, F27, who was as close as a real sister. We spent entire weekends at each other's place, celebrated family events, etc. From 6 years old till 18 years old. And I even lived at her place in 2nd grade while my parents went through a nasty divorce. I learned to speak some Russian, as she is Russian, and she learned to speak some Spanish. Needless to say, her older brother and little sister were like a family to me. During our teenage years, she had her two male best friends, one whom she started dating, and another one, Nico, now 29, who was Russian as well, whom I started dating at 17. Growing up, I had issues with a heart condition, and I won't bore you with the details, but I had to take a lot of meds, but got healthier starting from 16. I didn't have to take them daily, but only when my heart rate became irregular, but then immediately as it would become extremely painful, my heart would cramp and I would start to hyperventilate, and all my friends knew this, Nico included, and that I would black out if my meds got taken with alcohol. I didn't smoke much or drink much growing up as a result, since I was worried about my health and only did drink at home or in a safe setting. Legal drinking age is 16 here, and I only drink wine or beer, if at all. I had my first time with Nico at 17, when my parents stayed at a retreat for 2 weeks, and he came over to have a date night. I did drink 1 glass of wine, but started having health issues later, resulting in me taking my meds and being unconscious. I was a bit sore the next morning, but didn't think much about it. And 2 weeks later, I'm informing Nico that I'm now late on my period, and he starts to panic, confessing he had sex with me while I was unconscious. We had it before, so he didn't think much about it, and apparently he didn't have a condom on, but since I was on the pill, he figured it was alright, and he also didn't finish inside of me, but into a tissue. And let me tell you, I felt violated and disgusted by myself. I didn't know how to describe this and only told Angie about it. I was an utter mess for a few years and wasn't able to have sex again until 2 years later. I didn't remember any of it, but was too ashamed to go to my mom or anybody else. I didn't think of it as SA back then. I was too young to really understand what it was and how I was violated, and Angie told me it's alright, and that I should break up with him if I feel bad about it. But we were in a relationship and did have sex before. So I broke up with him the following day, and apparently he cried about his broken heart to her. And as Nico and Angie were close and hanging out together a lot, they started dating a few months afterwards, and I had to see him every time I went to visit her. And I told her I'm not able to see him. She didn't understand where I was coming from though, and the contact stopped, and we haven't seen or texted each other in years. I still follow her and her family as well, and saw that her brother is expecting his first child. As I was extremely close with her family, I just commented on the Instagram post expressing my gratitude. Then he reached out to me. I missed his wedding, but he wanted to ask me if I would be interested in joining the baby shower, as it's been years and we've been extremely close before. He told me I was like a third sister, and I just asked him if Nico and Angie will be there since they've been dating for 9 years, and he said yes. I didn't elaborate much, but just expressed that I will send a small present if he can give me his current address, but I won't be attending. And he kept pestering me on what exactly happened all those years ago, and why I'm not in their lives anymore. Angie told her family I'm not able to see her with an ex of mine, but his brother thought there's more behind it. And this is when I think I could be the a-hole. I told him the truth about what happened back then. And while I didn't know it at 17, I now know that this was SA, and I named it as such. I didn't receive any message back from him for a few days, but later Angie reached out to me, furious. Nico had planned to propose during the baby shower, but Angie's brother is against it now, having learned why I stopped the contact. She loves Nico and will stay with him, but by doing so, her brother said she is no longer a part of his life, as she doesn't want his little baby girl in the same family as an SA'er. Since then, I've been getting messages from old high school acquaintances telling me I should have ignored it and not told anybody. Since I didn't speak up back then, I lost the right to do so now, and I am a horrible person for ruining somebody's life over some stuff he did 10 years ago when he himself was a child as well. So, am I truly the a-hole for speaking up? Then in the comments section, OP responds to multiple comments saying how things are wrong and she could speak up. I now understand how wrong it has all been, and that it's SA. But we grew up in a small town with approximately 5,000 people, and I honestly don't know which way it would have gone if I would have spoken up. He was 19 back then, 2 years older, and everybody is in everybody's business. It would have made sound back then like it did now, and they all still live there. there, and it has made its rounds already. That's why so many of our old classmates are reaching out. Most of who still live there have left me furious messages. They have known Nico for all of their life and are standing by him. I moved out when I was 20 and my mom shortly after, and didn't stay in touch with most. It still breaks my heart to get such a furious response from people who are my whole childhood, and thank you for all your best wishes. I genuinely appreciate it. Then some users commented and said that OP is not to blame and that Nico did this to himself. Then OP said, I understand that what happened is on him. The backlash I am getting is because he is apparently not that person anymore, and something he did as a teenager, according to Angie, should not ruin his life, and is no way related to the daughter her brother will have. I don't know if he will ever act out or do something again, but it doesn't invalidate what happened to me, so thank you for confirming this. I just can't stop to feel bad about this having so much consequences. While I do not want to see Nico or Angie, I have made my peace with what happened to me back then. Then one user commented and said, but why are they attacking you and not the brother? You are not the one objecting to the marriage. Just feels like misogyny and victim blaming, to be honest. I guess because he is family and I'm the outsider who ruined their family? I've been getting so many messages from people who didn't even have my number back then, and I'm blocking as many people as the best as I can. It's just hard to not let these comments get to your heart. Then user 3 commented and said, not the a-hole. They got together so soon after the two of you broke up, and I can't help but wonder if your friend was convincing you to break up with Nico because she was hoping to get with him all along. I honestly don't believe it. They've known each other for years, and she broke up with her boyfriend 2 weeks before I broke up with Nico. It was a 5K town. Even adding to people from our age range from near villages, our school had 500 people attending, hence the options are very limiting. Then OP elaborated on getting therapy to help deal with the trauma and said, I was in therapy for 2 years and found peace with what happened to me. I am lucky, if you want to use that word, as I have no memory of it, but that didn't make it easier. It took me 2 years to be able to have any form of sexual contact again, but I am okay now. It's a part of me, but it's a part I can live with. Honestly, thank you for your kind words. And finally, OP elaborated on her health issues at the time when the incident happened and said, oh, it's not drunk blacked out. My medicine back then was supposed to lower my heart rate extremely, as I would have a racing heartbeat, and my body would start to shut down, hyperventilating pretty much, and my heart not being able to follow such strong use and basically tripping over the high heart rate. My heart would start skipping beats, then not be able to follow my thin blood flow, which flows faster than regular one, and the skipping would be the painful one as it would start to cramping up. I'm sorry if I'm not able to explain it better. English is not my primary language and I lack the medical vocabulary to fully describe it. But anyway, the pill slowed my heartbeat and general body functions, thus making me extremely tired. If mixed with alcohol, it would basically act like a super strong sleeping pill. My body could have been thrown off a cliff and I wouldn't wake up. I did give consent for the first time we had sex, but that was our first and only time. If I was conscious, I don't know if I would have had sex back then, being my first time and all, and I wasn't that eager to repeat it. And I don't think calling it essay is wrong, but what I had issues with is if I should have approached the subject more sensibly. In that way, I can understand that I ruined their engagement plans for next week, or his surprise of one. Update. First of all, I am immensely thankful for all the people who took the time to not only read through my story, but also comment. I read every single one, and I tried to respond to as many as possible. It gave me a little bit of hope of compassion for victims of SA, and also the courage to not cave to the backlash that I received. So, a mental update. Reading all the messages defending my choices on speaking up made me realize how insecure I was on what I am allowed to do, and how much I was trying to make it right to other people besides myself. This especially included Nico and Angie. And all of you are right. If Nico had changed, he would have apologized, reached out, or tried to make amends in some way, either when word got to him from his brother-in-law or at some point earlier in my life. My former best friend Angie should have been able to feel some sort of compassion if she had any respect for me as a human being, or the time we spent together. Her reactions showed that I shouldn't hesitate on my actions. I went to therapy from 21 onwards and thought I moved on from the essay as best as I could, but I realized how ashamed I still am almost 10 years later about an incident that wasn't my fault at all. I was ashamed to speak up back then and afraid that people around me would look differently at me, and somehow I still felt bad about speaking up today. So I'm trying to own what happened to me now and not apologize for other people's behaviors, especially as they don't even show me respect. So, what has happened since then? Well, I archived every nasty message I got on WhatsApp so I wouldn't have to read them, but would have the proof if needed at a later point. Angie's mom called me the following day of the incident, crying, and I shouldn't have answered the phone. But during the 10 years of friendship, I saw her as an aunt, almost a second mom. She always joked that while her children would run around the house doing whatever, I would always take the time to drink a tea and talk with her, showing her more love and time than her actual children. And while she said she's sorry for what has happened and for what I went through as a child, she couldn't believe that I would ruin Angie's happiness over something like that. With Angie's brother refusing to have Nico as a part of the family and Angie standing by Nico's side, it's divided their family and she is heartbroken. She has grown to love Nico like family as well and has known him for nothing more than to be a considerable young man who she knows will make her daughter happy. It wasn't nasty names or angry talk, but just a heartbroken mother who faked to acknowledge my pain and saw the fault in me. Angie's mom tried to get me to apologize or to take it back, but I refused as I don't see the fault in me. With everything that has happened, I believe that Nico hasn't changed and is just hiding it better somehow. He can see how people are standing by him and supporting his behavior so he won't have to change, and that is something I didn't want to indulge. Angie's mom not even used the word SA, and I tried to correct her every time she talked about it, trying to name it for her to understand better, but she would just start sobbing more, and it didn't make sense for us to continue to talk. Angie's mom used to be in contact with my mom for some time, and she reached out to her after our talk. I was afraid that my mom would find out since she's from a more conservative background, and we had a long talk and I didn't get to see her yet physically, but she apologized for not being there for me and not making me feel like I can talk to her. I tried to calm her down as best as I could, but when she asked me if my current partner knows that I was used like that, I got angry. She was scared my partner would leave me if he found out, implying it was something that made me less precious or appealing. When she asked me to keep it a secret from our family abroad and in our country, I hung up. She was acting exactly the way I was afraid she would, as if it's something shameful. It was especially hard as I'm trying my best to move away from the feeling of shame, and she has since apologized, but it's clear that her view of me has changed, and I don't know yet how to deal with it, but that's something to worry about in the next few weeks. Also, some of you suggested I wrote to Angie's brother Sven again and apologized for the mess, but I am glad that it is out in the open and how proud I am that he's defending his family. I asked if his old email is still working, as I would just send a gift card, but he didn't respond. But I did get a message from his wife 2 days ago. She thanked me for speaking up and informing them about Nico. There were apparently a few moments that made her uncomfortable, some jokes that Nico made, and in retrospect, she can see why Sven apparently informed her the moment he got my initial text. And both of them have since seen Angie but not Nico, and she refuses to be in the same room or house as him, and the same goes to their unborn daughter. Sven and Angie's mom have been at their place multiple times to beg to forgive Nico, and Sven caved a little. Angie and Nico will get married, and Sven will attend, but his wife will not. He is allowed in the family, but not in contact with either Sven's wife or daughter, and those restrictions are not for Angie. Sven was suffering trying to ease his mother's worries and is not able to take a stand and cut them out completely. This is a compromise they made without his wife's approval, and she told me she's trying her best to cut them out of their life indefinitely. She wanted to move back closer to her family as well and thinks this is a perfect opportunity, but isn't sure if she can follow through. His wife told me she's terribly sorry for all the issues that came my way, and it has been a lot trying to handle the situation on their side. Sven knows it's not my fault, but he doesn't want contact. It's hard for him to talk or see my name because even though he knows I'm not the guilty party, in some way I was the bearer of bad news, and he sees me as the start of all this drama. She told me a few times that neither of them believe I'm the bad guy, and they are just tired with everything, and it's just been extremely hard on them, and that's all that has happened so far. I am frustrated about everything, how it came to be, and it feels like Nico will just continue with his life without having to be remorseful. I didn't want him to suffer, but I think some part of me wanted to at least receive some kind of apology for all the suffering I went through afterwards. I'm having to deal with my mother and her changed, shameful view on me, and even though I'm happy it's all out, it's extremely hard to stand by my choices. My partner and my best friends both have been my shoulder to cry on during this ordeal, especially my best friend who was enraged for me, and I am extremely grateful to have both of them by my side. Right now, I'm just emotionally drained, but I'm sure it will be better once a few weeks pass by. Now here are some more relevant comments. User and said, "You spoke up and you did the right thing. If others can't handle the truth, that's their problem. Keep focusing on your healing and support." Then user 2 commented and said, "Not the a-hole. Unfortunately, it's a tale as old as time. The woman is blamed and the SAer gets off without a blemish. Only by speaking the truth over and over will the situation improve, and when the boomers die off." And finally, user 3 commented and said, "100% the right thing. What you did may keep Nico from attacking someone else or may encourage one of his other victims to step up. You never know how much people like you help everyone else when you stand up and speak out and are not ashamed of what was not your fault, but will point the finger at the one to shame. You're making the world a better place. I'm sorry for the family Nico missiled and the wife who was foolish enough to stay with him, but it's no longer your business. You did the right thing, and it's going to help others. If no one else says it to you, thank you for doing all of this. You are amazing, OP." Oh, small towns and villages of 5,000 people or so, you guys are always so weird sometimes when it comes to these stories, and this is no exception. Like OP said, it seems that Nico is unfortunately going to just keep living his life. He probably won't even get in trouble or face any consequences for this, but what OP did, like that commenter mentioned, is, help other people. It opened the door. It, possibly prevents Nico from doing anything else. People know who he is, and that's really good for this. So I'm glad that OP stood up and spoke for herself, because that's really hard for people. And even 10 years later, she's still dealing with the effects, and typical small town fashion, just 80 people messaged OP out of the blue and be like, "Hey, why would you tell the truth? Don't do that. Nico's awesome. He's so cool," even though he sexually assaulted someone, probably 20 people. Anyway, God, screw Nico. Next story. Story number 2. Am I the a-hole for telling my fiance I don't want my Temu engagement ring? My 27F fiance 29M proposed to me a few weeks ago. It caught me completely by surprise, but we've been together for 3 years, and things have been going great. So I was really excited, and I said yes. I really liked the ring when I first saw it, and my friends and family all think it is stunning. It's an oval cut with diamonds across the band, and I asked where he got it, and he wouldn't tell me where, but that he got it with a great deal. I didn't think anything of it until yesterday when we were in bed, and I asked him if it was diamond or moissanite, mainly out of curiosity, and I don't have a preference, by the way, and he said he didn't know and would have to look it up. When I glanced over at his phone, he was on the Temu app. I asked him if he got it from there, and he didn't respond. So I asked again, and he responded with something like, "Does it matter?" And then he left the room and ended up sleeping on the couch. I spent all night so confused. Today, I decided to download the app and look up my ring, and I found one that looks identical. I found the exact ring, and it listed as $38. I am mad. He makes good money, by the way, $200K a year, and I feel he could have shelled out some money for a ring better than one on Temu. So, am I the a-hole for telling him I don't want it? Then OP elaborated on her thoughts in the comments section and said, "Okay, I'm not mad that the diamonds are not real, but I worry about the quality of the ring because I imagined my engagement ring to at least be sturdy. It's fine for now, but I have a hard time believing it'll last longer than a year if it's $38 on Temu." Then one user commented and said, "Not the a-hole, because that thing might turn your finger green. He's lucky you don't have a sensitivity to fake metals like some do. He makes a good money but bought a $38 ring. Is he cheap with other things where this discount shopping isn't a new thing for him and he's just an all-around penny pincher?" My first thought was, if he did not spend the money, it might be because he doesn't expect this to last, or maybe he doesn't want to. Yeah, let me provide some more context. Really, he's never been overly frugal. I'm probably more frugal than he is, and neither of us are huge spenders, but we each make good money to not have to strictly budget or anything. We have our own accounts and split rent equally. I know he has at least $100K across his savings/investment accounts, and we go out for drinks a few times a week, and we'll go to concerts together and whatnot frequently. We travel a few times a year and stay in basic accommodations, and, like our DoorDash the other night was $40. My ring costs less than the DoorDash dinner. Then user 2 commented and said, "You are not the a-hole, but what we all really want to know is whether or not you would still marry him if he replaces the ring." The responses to this have made me even more confused. People saying it could be a loyalty test, that he doesn't want me to be able to see it if we divorce, or that he doesn't plan to be with me for long. I have a pit in my stomach. I haven't considered breaking things off, but that was before I wrote this here. I was thinking maybe he was just not thinking or rushed getting the ring, or maybe he genuinely thought he was getting a great deal on a high-quality ring. I'm not sure at this point. I plan to confront him when he gets back from work in a couple of hours. And finally, OP elaborated on the ring and said, "The response to this is just absolutely insane. Sorry if if I'm having a hard time keeping up with the responses. And a few of y'all want to see the ring, so I will link it. And I'm just waiting for him to get home. The seller is LVZ Gem, and I guess it technically is moissanite. Update number 1. After reading responses from my first post on the Am I the A-hole subreddit, my post got taken down. I was freaking out a bit. He came home while I was FaceTiming a friend about this, and I hung up with her and then spoke to him for about an hour or so. He apologized for sleeping on the couch and that he needed time to think. He doesn't see eye to eye with me on my concerns about the ring and says he did research and that it was highly rated. He says if the ring breaks, he will replace it, but didn't say it'd be higher quality. And I have people messaging me that the ring could be harmful to my health and that Temu has horrible standards for their jewelry and labor issues, so now I really don't want to wear it. He left and went to his brother's house, and usually I'd go with him, but things are just tense. So, am I the a-hole for telling him I still don't want it? Now, here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "Kind of tough, because had you not found out it was from Temu, would you be upset?" To be honest, if I hadn't found out it was from Temu, I probably wouldn't be upset. But when it inevitably breaks or tarnishes, the truth would have came out. And now that I know, it has completely changed how I feel about the ring, even if aesthetically it doesn't look too bad. Then User 2 commented and said, "Did this come out as a shock, or is he normally cheap and thoughtless?" He's not normally cheap or thoughtless. He's a genuinely great guy, which is making this harder to navigate. He started making me feel really guilty and materialistic today when he talked about this, and I can see his point of view, but I'm just confused. It feels like Temu is the bottom of the barrel. I'd be happy with a cheap, decent quality ring from Etsy or anywhere else. I don't really care about the price itself, it's more about the quality, and feeling like he doesn't really value me the way I thought he did. Then OP replied to several commenters asking if she is a gold digger and said, "I want to clear up these gold digger rumors because this isn't about the cost of the ring. I only mention these things for context, not because I feel he owes me something in return. When I met him, I was making just over 100K, and he was working part-time and doing an internship, bringing in significantly less than me. He totaled his car early on in our relationship, and I happily drove him to his work every morning on the way to my work when he didn't have a car. When his mom got sick and went on hospice, I immediately canceled all of my travel plans and holiday plans with my family and sat with him, visiting her every day for months. I helped plan his brother's wedding. I even loaned him money for a new car once he started his new job. He did pay me back, by the way, and he moved in with me recently, and most everything in the home is mine that I paid for prior to the relationship, like furniture, etc. I have paid for so many plane tickets for our travels, concert tickets, etc., that I've never asked him to pay back and never will. That's what a relationship is. I genuinely care for him. He has done similar gestures for me and is more than willing to spend money on dates. And believe it or not, I'm not this greedy woman sitting here excited to get his money. I have my own. And finally, OP elaborated on if they've ever been ring shopping and said, "We never went ring shopping. The proposal was a surprise to me. We'd casually discussed getting married in the future for the past year or so, but he never asked about my taste in rings, so I was kind of thinking that happened before the engagement. I actually like that style of the ring, but now that I know it's from Temu, I can't look at it the same way." Small update. I'm literally just sitting here refreshing your comments, trying to figure out what to do next. He texted to let me know he plans at staying at his brother's house for the weekend and is taking Friday off. It's not crazy abnormal since he's been watching football over there, but I feel like he's avoiding me now. I'm trying not to be pushy about the situation, and I will give him some space, but now I'm just in my head about all of it, and I'm regretting my initial reaction. It's just a dumb ring, and maybe I've read into it too much. And the only other time we've had an argument like that, it was resolved within a couple of hours, so I'm not used to this behavior from him. Update number 2. He came home this morning while I was in a work-from-home meeting, and these comments made my head spin all night. I got like 3 hours of sleep, so I admit I may be in the wrong for bringing up his finances, but I did. Again, about the gold digger rumors, when I met him, I was making more money than him and often paying for his things. His high-paying job now is a recent development. I have my own money, and I don't need his. Anyway, I asked him what was going on, if there was anything he needed to tell me, if he was testing me by doing this. And well, that really set him off, and he said, "What kind of a person do you think I am? You think I'm a cheapskate? A liar? You obviously think really poorly of me." But still, he never gave me a reason. So I asked why he was deflecting every question to victimize himself and to avoid my questions, and he tried to leave again. So I tried de-escalating, and I told him I see where he's coming from, but I need to know if he still loves me, and he was immediately apologetic and said he still wants to get married. He said I can just pick out my own ring and buy it with my own money. He said he's sick of talking about this and that it's water under the bridge now, and he's acting like his normal self himself again since this conversation, and I hear him out there skipping and humming around to himself all happily, and it's actually pissing me off. Maybe I'm being dramatic, but I don't think I can handle a marriage with someone like this.
Look, I'm gonna just be real with you, okay? In certain parts of the world, all right, in certain societies, a lot of them, don't cheap out on the ring. Just don't. I'm sorry, just don't, right? It's a big-ass purchase, I get it, but don't, okay? You don't need to go into bankruptcy for it, but buy yourself a nice ring in your price range. And $38 was not his price range. There was a time where I thought Temu was really good, and then I heard 5 people talking about it, and I was like, oh, Temu sucks. And you know how I did that? By listening and investigating and doing a Google search. Again, just don't cheap out on the ring. That's all I can say. I'm willing to bet most people here, especially the guys, probably know this. But the DoorDash analogy. The DoorDash was more expensive than the ring. OP is not the a-hole here, all right? And I don't want to say that the boyfriend's being an a-hole. He's kind of being an idiot. He was kind of an a-hole at the end, though. But just don't cheap out on it, please. You are eventually going to lose that battle. Again, you don't got to go bankrupt, but just $38? How does he not see that? Anyway, next story.
Story number 3. I, 23F, won $10,000 in cash. My boyfriend, 24M, of 4 years, and I have been having a childish fight, and I did something I can't undo. He is a full-time student who works part-time in the summer. I have a full-time job and a part-time job. He studies a lot, and we live together and mostly live off my pay while he stretches what he makes in the summer. Neither of us have ever owned a car because it isn't necessary where we live. We both walk or take the public everywhere to save money. In the morning, we stop at a corner shop shortly before splitting up for the day. He buys cigarettes and coffee, and I buy fruit for my lunch, and on the weekends, lottery tickets. He always makes fun of me for paying the stupid tax, but I figure my indulgence is cheaper and doesn't come with lung cancer. Sometimes I jokingly tell him not to expect a penny when I win. Well, the day I did win, he answered me with, "Fine, keep it all. It's not like I'm crying over a penny of nothing over here." And I showed him that I had won, and he stared at it for a bit, and then dismissively told me I'd probably spent more than that on tickets. In response, I asked what I should blow his half on for myself, and I was honestly joking at the time, but he suddenly became angrier than I've ever seen him, and I didn't want to admit that I'd been kidding because he was so pissed off that it pissed me off. He wants a car and I don't, and he keeps trying to steamroller me, so I'm refusing to share the money, and I'm honestly willing to save or spend the money for us, but I don't want a car. I won't use a car, and it will keep costing us money in parking and maintenance. And after weeks of him sulking and lecturing me about his entitlement to the money, he took me to a car lot and tried to embarrass me into going along with him in front of a salesman. I threw a tantrum after we left without buying anything, and I went to my mom's and I paid our rent up to the end of the year and donated the rest to charity. He doesn't know, but I think I effed up and I don't know how to come clean. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said,
I don't think you effed up at all, OP.
Then user 2 replied and said,
Me neither. You spent your money buying the tickets. It's technically you're winning money. It's not like you're married. That'd be a little different. He's just mad that he didn't support your buying the tickets in the first place, so now he looks entitled. I think you spent the money very wisely. Plus, now he doesn't have to worry about rent? He better not complain.
Then user 3 commented and said,
The only way this would be an F-up is if OP has a tax bill coming due to the winning with no funds anymore to pay it.
No, I rounded down to $10,000 because I was counting after tax and a celebratory dinner. Then user 4 commented and said,
All in all, OP, you sound like a very level-headed person. Your boyfriend, on the other hand, sounds like a huge jerk. Why are you with someone who treats you like that?
Then user 5 said,
Wait, you paid up rent for both of you or just for yourself?
It's my place from before dating him. I never ask him for rent because it cost me the same either way. Then user 6 said,
So just to be clear, he's living rent-free and you share finances, meaning you pay for everything unless his part-time job gives him enough hours, and he's demanding more money from you?
And finally, user 7 commented and said,
I think you should seriously consider everyone's responses. Your boyfriend does not sound like he's respectful or appreciative of the effort you put into your relationship. With that said, do you mean that your dad gave you money when you turned 18 so you could get yourself out of an abusive situation if you had to? Because that's the first time I've heard of a parent doing that, but it's seriously an awesome idea. I know a few women who keep saving specifically because they want to have insurance in case of a bad situation, but never a parent initiating that sort of savings. If I ever have children, I'm totally stealing that idea.
Yeah, my dad sat me down and gave me the grown-up talk about verbal and physical abuse and consent and how to recognize it, what to do, and how to not be abusive. Then he gave me the money and explained how to use it, and he did this for all of his kids, boy or girl. Update. So, long story short, a couple of months before I won, my boyfriend had secretly dropped out of school to join a Christian rock band. He's not Christian and bartended to cover his new coke habit, which explains so much, and he took me winning as a sign they were about to make it and should go on tour. That's why he wanted the car so damn much. Obviously, we had a huge fight. I sacrificed a lot because he told me he'd never be happy without that degree, and he threw it away to play rock star while I grounded myself down at dead-end jobs. I told him I agreed to support him through one dream, and if he was done with it, I was going after my dreams now. And he made all kinds of promises to me about how he'll take care of me when he gets famous, but I told him the only promise I cared about were the ones he made when I agreed to help him through school. He said he's breaking up with me until I come to my senses, and as far as I'm concerned, that's already happened. So I had his brother pick up his stuff. He tried to cause problems about me illegally evicting him, but I reminded him I had some text conversations where he said, "Your apartment, your problem." And he also said, "I don't live there anymore, so deal with it." So I have no idea if that's legally enforceable, but neither does he. My lease is up in 3 months, and I won't have to worry about it after that. It's been really tough accepting that he's not the guy I fell in love with anymore, but the way that he's been acting has made it a lot easier. I'm mostly angry I sunk so much of my time and money and compromised my future for him, but I guess it's better I found out now instead of later. I also got tested in case he cheated or was doing other drugs, and so far so good. I'm also 9,000% sure my ex staged the 3 break-ins we had in our apartment after one of his friends told me around that time that my then boyfriend was trying to sell my prescriptions and his laptop that I ended up replacing and said that they were supposedly stolen. I told the cops and his friend agreed to make a statement, but I don't know what's happening with that. Other than that, I'm happy to report that I'm only working one job now. It's actually something I wanted to do and pays way more. My apartment is much nicer without his junk, and now the toilet is never unflushed, and the seat is always down, so I've got that going for me too. With all my free time, I've rescued a kitty and I'm learning to knit, and I was planning on becoming an old cat lady, but I also went on my second first date ever. It was with another woman who was kind of a surprise, but also somehow not. We've got a second date planned, and I'm incredibly giddy with anticipation, which is really nice. Also, I told my dad how much you guys liked his dump him fund/consent conversation, and he said his grandma gave him one when he decided to get married at 18. Not to my mother, but he can't take credit for the idea. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said,
I'm sorry he turned out to be such a heel. Getting dumped is never fun, but a bullet was definitely dodged here. You said your apartment is much nicer without his junk, and the toilet is never unflushed, and the seat is always down, so you've got that going for you? Well, that is nice.
Then user 2 replied and said,
Being dumped is never fun, but I think in OP's case, it's the best thing that could have happened to her. And we can't forget she's rescued a kitten. Always a plus to rescuing animals.
Then user 3 commented and said,
Entitled, a coke addict, a thief, etc., etc. What a complete pile of human garbage. Congratulations on getting rid of him. Enjoy doing you, OP.
Then user 4 replied and said,
And he wanted to be in a Christian rock band. Hilarious when you consider all of those factors together.
Then user 5 said,
Hold on, the toilet was never unflushed? What the hell, did he not flush the toilet?
No, not usually, which made it so much more lovelier that one time I forgot to check the seat and I fell in. And finally, user 6 commented and said,
Yay, a cat, good for you. And also, while this all really sucked for you to live through, I am sure that it will be the most delightful of anecdotes. Dropped out of school to join a Christian rock band is just about the dumbest life plan I can think of, especially given the general state of the music industry as a whole and of Christian rock in particular.
It's very unlike him. I thought he was messing with me until he showed me the videos. Not good. And I don't know if coke explains all of what's going on. There may be other drugs I don't know about. He's not the same as when we met. I know that much. Update/new post. My boyfriend broke up with me and left until I came to my senses, and is claiming that letting his brother pick up his stuff is illegal eviction, even though I have text messages from him saying he doesn't live there anymore. Could he have a case? So, I posted an update to r/relationships after asking for advice, and someone recommended I made sure I can't get in legal trouble over the situation. Well, I live in California and had my apartment for 4 years. My ex lived with me for 3 years. He never paid rent, and he was never on the lease. And my landlord knew he was there, and he got mail there. My lease is up in 3 months, and I'm planning on moving. He left willingly, and when I texted him about some damage he'd done to the building that he'd promised our landlord would fix, he sent me 2 text messages saying that I kept copies of saying, your apartment, your problem, and I don't live there anymore, so deal with it. He sent his brother to my place to pick up some music equipment, and I had his brother take all of his stuff with him. My ex texted me angrily about how I couldn't just illegally evict him, but backed off when I sent him screenshots of the text messages. Also, the police are currently investigating him for 3 break-ins into my apartment when he lived there based off of one of his friends making a statement that he tried to sell him my prescriptions and his laptop around that time. I don't know if that's relevant. Could he cause me any legal problems?
So, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm just gonna say no, confidently so. He wasn't on the lease. He didn't pay the rent. She has, written stuff of him admitting, essentially, that it's not his apartment. And also, he's running from the law, so I doubt he's gonna go to the law about the illegal eviction while he's on the lam. Also, someone made a wrestling reference and said he made a heel turn. I caught that one. But also, this guy's doing the whole rock star thing backwards. You get big, then you go on tour, then you get the coke addiction. He's doing it at the start. He's stupid. He might have illegitimate children. You do that after a couple of albums, I think. When do you have illegitimate children as a rock star? I don't know. I feel like a few albums in, a coke addiction, a few controversies, a collab, maybe one documentary. Then, once you've reached legend status, you have an illegitimate child. Anyway, this guy's stupider than the last guy. Next story.
Story number 4. Am I wrong for siding with my mom when she told my wife she isn't family? My beautiful wife Zoe and I have been married for a year. I have a 10-year-old sister, Liv, who is a very shy, quiet kid, who is very well behaved. With her parents or super close family friends, she is sassy, funny, outgoing, but around most adults, she is super reserved. Zoe and Liv have an okay relationship, but I certainly wouldn't say that they're close. So, Liv hates the movie character Krampus. When she was 4 years old, she went downstairs on Christmas Eve, and my mom and her friend were watching the movie in the dark living room, and it scared the crap out of her. It's not like she is still super scared of it, but she definitely still hates it. So, we were recently staying with my family while in between places, just for a month, and Zoe found a Halloween mask that looked similar to Krampus at her friend's house, and thought it would be hilarious to prank Liv. I really don't think she had bad intentions. She had a mischievous streak, and it was totally something Liv's dad would do. So, Zoe woke her up with the mask, and Liv did not think it was funny, and basically just wouldn't talk to her. My mom came into our room and very aggressively told Zoe, "If you ever go into my sleeping child's room again, we are going to have a huge problem." Zoe tried to say she was just playing around, and she didn't think that they would get mad, as Liv's dad does stuff like that too. My mom said, "He is her effing dad. You aren't family." And Zoe was furious and asked if I was really not going to defend her. Then I said, "You are 100% my family, but Liv probably doesn't think of you as family, and that is understandable." And my mom even clarified that is what she meant. And she said she considers her husband family, but would never ask us to, and she told Zoe to accept that she isn't Liv's family. Now Zoe is furious with me for not standing up for her, and I feel my mom was mostly right. Liv doesn't view Zoe as family and is more closed off and reserved with her versus Dad, who she is 100% comfortable with and she would feel she would get back at. Zoe is my family, but it seems weird to push her on my family. Edit. I would like to clarify some things though. I do think of Zoe as family. She is the most important family in my life, and Liv is my half-sister, and I don't have a relationship with her dad, my mom's husband, though I know that might scandalize some of you with your views of family, but I would never prank Liv because we don't have that relationship, so I was pretty horrified that my wife pranked her. My wife never forced her husband on me, so I stand by not forcing Zoe on Liv. Well, anyway, I just wanted to let you all know that we are now no contact with my family. So the Krampus prank took place Friday night, and I haven't really been home since due to crazy work hours. I got home and found Zoe hysterical. I've never seen her like that. She was on the verge of a panic attack and couldn't stop crying. Well, my mom's husband came in and in a really mocking voice said, "It's just a prank, bro," like he was trying to be some cool TikTok kid. While I was gone, my mom told Zoe they were going out to dinner with Liv, so Zoe was home alone, and my mom's husband and some of their piece of crap friends staged a break-in. They had ski masks and ropes, and obviously Zoe thought she was going to die. Then Liv popped out giggling like crazy, and Zoe realized what was going on. I don't agree with what Zoe did to Liv, but it is nothing compared to this sadistic crap. I actually hit my stepdad, which is crazy because he's a black belt, and I might regret it in the morning, but I've never been so pissed. And I told my mom I would never forgive her. She began screaming about, "She was in my child's effing bedroom. She had no right, blah, 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 blah." I am done. We got our crap and went to a motel. And honestly, what sucks is my godfather was involved. And I always thought he was a cool dude, but whatever. He picked his side. Screw them. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said,
Well, it would have been a prank if the wife pulled out a gun and shot a few of the people breaking in. I see they wanted to get back at the wife from the first prank, but no one seems to actually know what the hell a prank is. Pranks are supposed to be harmless and funny for everyone involved. These are like hazing.
Then user 2 commented and said,
First, your wife was wrong, and I don't think anyone is disputing that. And really, the only complaint your mom seems to have is that she went into your sister's room, which I agree with. If she had jumped out from behind a door or something, then I would say your wife wasn't wrong. But none of that excuses a group of grown men causing a woman to think that she is about to be essayed and possibly killed. That is not a prank. There are so many other actual pranks that they could have done if they really felt like they needed to get back at her, but they chose something dark and scummy. The problem your mom has now is that she has lost any moral standing she initially had, which is what happens when you stoop lower than the person you're offended by. If she or her idiot husband say anything about you hitting him, you can look them right in the eye and say, "It's just a prank, bro," and then tell them that they have no room to act self-righteous, or as if they have any high ground to stand on anymore since they chose to retaliate in the way they did. They got back at your wife in a terrible way, so going along with their childish mindset, they're even with your wife and now can no longer hold the prank against her. You, however, have every right to protect your wife from people who have just proven that they are willing to go to the extreme to put her in her place.
So, I can definitely see how this story can be divisive up until the breaking in part, where I feel like most people would agree that mom and company are the a-hole for doing that. That's not equivalent exchange. That's just something horrible. That's an evil prank. It's not even a prank. Like, it shouldn't be classified as a prank. That is invoking trauma. That's what it is. That's invoking a panic attack. As for the part about family, I mean, I see where OP's coming from, but also, you know, I guess she married into the family, right? If you had a family tree, Zoe would be on the same piece of paper that Liv is on, but I think it's just that they don't have that connection, right? Like, maybe we shouldn't be arguing about whether they're family or not, but if they have the connection, and if Zoe has the right to do that to Liv, or should she do that because if she has that connection or not. Like that one commenter said, if she was hiding behind a door or something, it probably wouldn't be as bad. But she went into the room of a child that she's not very close with and then scared her. You see what I mean? So I feel like they are family, like on paper, but maybe she doesn't feel that Zoe's family. You know what I mean? But anyway, next story. Story number 5. My 23F parents' 50s are tearing down my treehouse to install a hot tub and a gazebo. I know this sounds so childish, but I'm devastated. It was my sanctuary from their constant fighting. How do I deal or convince them not to? First of all, thanks for reading. Secondly, let me apologize for the nature of this post. I know people have real problems out there, and mine isn't one of them, but this is deeply affecting me. So background on my childhood. My parents ran a business together and constantly fought. I mean constantly. The fights would sometimes devolve into physical altercations that were terrifying to me. I was an only child, so I think I'm the only person in the world besides them who knows how bad it actually got. To the outside world, we were a very normal family. When I was 6, my grandpa asked me what I wanted most for my birthday. Even then, I knew I wanted to escape, so I said a treehouse. I helped my grandpa with every single nail in that place, and it became my literal sanctuary when there was utter chaos in my house. I was in there when it was 100 degrees outside. I was in there when it was below freezing. I painted it every year. I decorated it. I treated it like it was an almost religious retreat for me. I came home every summer from college and clean, painted, and even slept in it most of the time. I permanently moved out about a year ago, but I also had fantasies that I could someday introduce my kids to my treehouse someday. In my ultimate pie-in-the-sky dreams, I thought about taking it apart, board by board, and reassembling it in my own yard. Yesterday, I got an email from my mom that, almost as a footnote, she said very casually, "Oh, me and your father are tearing out that old oak tree with your ugly treehouse and finally putting in a gazebo with a hot tub. Aren't you excited for us?" And my parents always denied how much they scared me when they fought. They also flat out deny that the fights got as bad as they did. Or they say that since they found Christ, the fights and altercations have been forgiven, and I should forgive them too. But I can't just forget. And now threatening to tear down my special space seems like the ultimate admission that they either don't know or just don't care how much they tormented me with their constant battles. I'm crushed over this. And apparently it's coming down Saturday and I just can't get home to do anything about it. I politely asked if they could try to please save the pieces, and my mom said, "We're hiring laborers, and I just don't think they'll care enough to try." Thanks a lot, Mom. So, what can I do here? I'm so crushed. Is this just part of growing up and being an adult that I have to deal with? Should I pay over $1,200 for a last-minute ticket tomorrow and try to save as much as I can? Then in the comments section, one user said,
3 things. First, I want you to consider that a big part of what made that treehouse special isn't the tree or the boards or the nails. It isn't the color or the decorations, the ropes or ragged curtains. What made that place special was the effort you invested, the memories you have with your grandfather, the memories of cold days and warm nights and sleeping outside. And those things, those feelings and memories will always be yours, untouched and untouchable by anything your parents say or do. Next, I would like you to build on that idea that this safe place of happiness existed not because of a treehouse of boards or nails, but because of the effort you put in shaping it and caring for it and making it your own. Which means your efforts, your passions are the key to making places that feel safe and welcoming in your life. That means when you have kids, you can build a new treehouse with them, teach them how to paint and nails and love and create a safe space. And it means that right now, wherever you live, there's a corner or a closet or a room that you could decorate, invest time in and effort and love into to make your own little treehouse. And the last thought, I promise, you're an adult. You moved away from home, hopefully for good, but obviously even if you return, it won't be as a child. That's a transformation for you, from dependent child to independent adult. From a kid who is supposed to do what they're told and obey their parents into an adult who is still thoughtful about what their parents say, but does what is in their own heart. Transformations like this are mostly internal things. We don't go from limb-climbing larvae to big-winged butterflies. We still look the same and talk the same and mostly act the same. But this treehouse and the hot tub, that's physical evidence of this transformation. Your parents' house is still a home, but they're no longer full-time parents of a child. Their lives are being transformed as well, and they are remarking their environment to reflect this new reality. You are changing, they're changing, and the relationship between you and your parents will be different too. You're not a child who must live with her parents and needs a shelter. You're an adult who gets to negotiate new boundaries with her adult parents. Take this as a symbol, an omen, and run with it a little. Update. A huge thank you to everyone, especially user 4, for such thoughtful replies. I didn't specifically follow everyone's advice, but rather sort of pieced things together from everyone. So, seriously, thank you everybody. So, at the end, I decided I called my mom to please take several pictures of the treehouse for me, from several angles and inside, and she was so rude and dismissive and said something along the lines of, "Oh, Jenny, we don't have time for that, and you can't expect us to climb into that piece of junk, do you?" And I was heartbroken, all over again, because she was callous. I decided that the only way I was going to have any keepsakes was to fly home and either take the pictures myself or save as much of the wood as I could. I bought a really expensive last-minute ticket home. After I'd already paid the ticket, I remembered that maybe my neighbor would be willing to take some pictures for me. They are an elderly couple, but they had almost been like surrogate grandparents. When they were home, they traveled a lot, but Mr. Smith prided himself on being in great shape, so I figured it couldn't hurt to ask him for pictures just in case I didn't make it home in time. To say it was an odd conversation is an understatement, and I'll just type it out to the best of my memory. I said, "Hi, Mrs. Smith, it's Jenny from next door. Are you guys in town by any chance?" Then Mrs. Smith said to me, "Jenny, it's so good to hear from you. No, we're out of town right now. Is there something I can do for you? Is everything okay?" Well, not really. My parents are tearing down the oak tree with my... Your what? They are doing what? They are tearing down the oak tree with my treehouse. Oh no, they can't do that. That's our oak tree. Well, I think either Friday or Saturday they are having people over to cut it all down. Jenny, I need to go make some calls. I'm sorry I need to let you go. I'll try to call you back. So I flew home early Friday morning. My parents had hired some laborers from Home Depot but weren't home. They were well underway tearing my treehouse down. I approached them and I asked them if they could pay to set aside the boards and metal parts and not throw them in the dumpster that they had brought, and they agreed, and I was able to save almost all the wood in a very neat pile. I even tried to number everything, so if I ever do get to rebuild it someday, I know what goes together. It wasn't ideal, but I feel fortunate that I did get to save most of everything. I'd say at maybe 6 p.m. my parents finally showed up and they were mad as I have ever seen them. They weren't even happy to see me. What it turns out, the neighbors had their lawyer issue an injunction against them tearing the tree down, and I can't even begin to say how angry my parents were.
And they didn't even really speak to me to tell me what was going on, so I called Mr. and Mrs. Smith back. It took until Saturday, but they finally called, and they told me that basically there had been a surveying mistake when my parents had built their house in the 80s, and the tree had actually been on the Smiths' property the whole time. They told me they always had an uneasy peace with my parents over the error, and had never minded having a treehouse in the tree, but chopping it down was crossing a major line. And they said that the tree gave them great shade in the summer mornings, and they could not imagine tearing it down for any reason. They asked me what my parents' reasons were, and I told them about the gazebo, and he literally started laughing that my parents had the nerve to knowingly build a gazebo on their property. He said he'd always planned on legally deeding the property over to my parents, since it's only about an 11-foot error along the property line, but since he thinks my parents purposefully waited until he and Mrs. Smith were out of town to rip down the tree, he wasn't in any mood to do them any favors. Saturday was so awkward, and I spent the night at a friend's house from high school, and this morning my dad said he wanted my crap off his property, so I called the Smiths back, and they said they didn't mind if I stored my wood in their barn as long as I needed. My parents went to church, and I plan on leaving without saying goodbye. I had some memorabilia boxes in the attic, and I'm taking them to a friend's house, and she's going to ship them out to me, so there's nothing left in the house for my parents to take their anger out on. I don't know how this will affect our relationship, but the reality is we haven't had much of one for a long time. I don't have any attachment to my childhood home anymore, so at least in the near term, there's nothing for me to really go home to. Anyway, thank you everyone for the advice and giving me some clarity during a really stressful time. I didn't follow most advice, but I did take a little bit from all 100 plus responses to work out a decent solution. Thank you again. Story number 6. My supervisor met my boyfriend, and now she wants an HR meeting. Posting here because my friends are busy, and I feel like this is the next best thing since I listen every week and love reading everybody's comments and opinions on stuff. So, I, 24F, am a high school science teacher, and my boyfriend, 25M, is an OnlyFans model. This is important, and today after school, he helped me carry in some stuff for a lab I'll be doing with my kids. When he arrived, the principal, I'll call her Jan, was outside for dismissal and was able to meet him. While he was helping me set up everything in my classroom, Jan came in and asked me if they had ever met since he looked familiar. My boyfriend said he didn't think so, and that was that. When we finished up, I gave him a tour of the school that ended at the office. Jan was still there and greeted us again before a look of what I can only describe as fear came across her face. She quickly excused herself, and we were left alone and confused. My boyfriend asked if maybe she recognized him from his OnlyFans page, and I said surely not since she's a middle-aged woman who barely knows how to use her phone, and he let me live in denial until I got a text from her as we were cooking dinner. She said to me,
Good morning, OP. I'd like to have a meeting with you and HR tomorrow morning. Please be in my office at 7 a.m.
So now I'm almost certain that my boyfriend was right, and she does know him from his page. He keeps trying to reassure me that it's not about that, but I can see in his eyes that he's at least a little proud of himself, and I've kicked him out to go buy me some stress snacks. My friends are busy, and my family doesn't know he's an OnlyFans model, so I don't know who else to turn to. Maybe y'all have some advice for me? I want to crawl out of my skin. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said,
That would be a ridiculous reason to be fired. I would recommend recording if you're in a one-party consent state for recording. And she can't fire you because she's a naughty girl.
At the beginning of the year, one of my coworkers told me that another teacher got fired for wearing a skirt above her knees. So I don't know, I'm just freaked out, I guess. And then user 2 commented and said,
Please say your union. Call your rep. Don't admit or agree to anything. In fact, say as little as possible. If it's about his OnlyFans page, you're about to get paid. But here's a flip side. You said he helped you carry things in. Are you supposed to have visitors sign in? Did he?
Yeah, I asked for her permission a day in advance and had him sign in at the front office. They gave him a sticker badge. Update. Hello, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to make a separate post for an update or not. Sorry, this is my first time actually posting on Reddit. I have an account for stalking, but my name is linked to it. So please let me know if I'm not supposed to. Anyway, I asked for advice and y'all gave me so much. Thank you. I felt very supportive. Also, a lot of y'all clocked it. I do work for a religious private school. Anyway, I arrived for my meeting at 7, and I know a lot of you thought it was early, but school starts at 7:45, so it was a normal time for me. I did record the meeting, and even though I am in a one-party consent state, I asked just to be safe. The meeting started with Jan, my principal, saying that it had recently come to their attention that my boyfriend had been publicly participating in lewd acts. and I asked what she meant, since as far as I knew, my boyfriend had never had any charges filed against him for something like that. That's when the HR lady, Pam, said that somebody, they couldn't name names, just said it was a staff member, found his OnlyFans account. Like many of you said, I asked what that was since I had never heard of it. And they explained, although they did not look as uncomfortable as I had hoped. Then they asked if I had ever participated in or intended to participate in one of his videos. I said no. Jan said that I couldn't bring any unvetted guests into the building. So I pulled up the email thread I had asking for permission and reminded her that he had his ID scanned in order to get a temporary badge. Pam then went on to say that it was due to the nature of his online activity that he would be no longer allowed in the school. I said okay and asked if when I brought my dad to help with things in the future, would I need to disclose his online activity as well? Pam said that wasn't necessary, but that they couldn't have any teacher or staff member affiliated with a sex worker. I asked what that meant, and she said that I could not bring him onto school grounds, to functions, or anything related to school. Additionally, since the school represented the church, the staff could only have relationships with people who upheld a dignified image. Apparently, my boyfriend doesn't do that. She also said that if they receive one report from a parent, student, or staff member of my affiliation with him after this meeting, that would be grounds for immediate termination. I asked if that also applied to the staff member who reported it in the first place, since they were on an adult website, and Jan said that was irrelevant, that the meeting was about me, not the other staff member. The meeting ended shortly afterwards, and they asked me to sign an acknowledgement of the meeting. I told them I wanted to review it first and brought it home with me. My boyfriend is furious and at the same time keeps apologizing, saying that it's his fault, but it's not. The standards for teachers are crazy. We're going to have a little Indeed/LinkedIn date, so hopefully I can get out of there ASAP. Lesson learned though, never take a job at a religious school. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said,
You missed the opportunity to ask Jan in front of HR if she ever figured out where she knew your boyfriend from, since she said he looked familiar to her.
And then user 2 commented and said,
You asked if that also applied to the staff member who reported it in the first place since they were on an adult website. And then you said that Jan said that was irrelevant, that the meeting was about you and not the other staff member. Well, Jan can't do that because that staff member is Jan. She set up a meeting with herself. Good luck escaping. All I'm saying is, if this was a TV show and the boyfriend was written as a slightly smarter and slightly more arrogant character, he would have walked up to Jan and be like,
Hey, what was my favorite video of yours?
And then she would have ran out and cried and prayed. Jan, everyone knows it's you. Oh, well, that's not relevant right now. It's about you, OP. Sure, Jan. I love the Bradys. Anyway, yeah, OP's probably best course of action here is to just go on Indeed and get out of there. Because let's be honest, maybe, someone gets tipped off, wink, wink, or a false email gets sent, wink, wonk, and OP's out of the job. So might as well get ahead of it because, it doesn't seem like Jan, her boss, the principal, is a fan of her right now. And it probably won't be for a while. Anyway, next story. Story number 7. Am I the a-hole for walking our dog while my wife was getting ready for dinner? It feels ridiculous to ask about this, but I'm starting to think I'm missing some key bit of information here. I guess I'm asking that if I am, why? Because it wasn't my intention, and I certainly would like to prevent it from happening again. This Friday, my wife and I had reservations at her favorite restaurant. Because her birthday is right around the corner, we have a party planned. But this was supposed to be our night out together alone. The way the reservation was set up, I would come home from work, change, and immediately drive there, as it's around an hour and a half by car. And yes, we live in hick country. Yes, I am a hick, and no, we aren't moving. That I've been made aware of. The day had gone great so far, and from what I knew, everything was going according to plan. I got home, and she was behind schedule getting ready. This is not something that happens for her ever, and I was surprised, but that reason wasn't her fault, and it was barely a 20-minute deviation. However, I was just waiting by the door during that time, and the dog decided he needed out. So I took him for a walk around our yard. It took maybe 5 minutes, and I cleaned up everything and had him put up before my wife was ready. We made it to the dinner reservation by the skin of our teeth, and that was that. We had a great date, and I would have never known she was upset with me until the next morning when she said that she had never known me to be so impatient, which confused me, and she rolled her eyes and said that she noticed that I took the dog for a walk before we left to make her hurry, and that she just didn't want to let my bad mood ruin the night.
I had been in a great mood and told her so, but she refuses to believe it and got pretty angry, which I haven't been able to calm her down from to even talk about all of this again. I really don't understand what I've done wrong here, and I don't know what to do. Am I the a-hole? Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said,
Not the a-hole. It sounds like she may really be annoyed about something else. Try talking again to see if you can get under the real issue. Did something happen at work, or did she have another expectation that was not met?
Not that she talked about. The day went pretty well from what I know, but I'll definitely try to talk to her about her job. She hasn't had any trouble from this lot yet that I know of, but it is a newer job, and there may be things I don't know of. But thank you. I probably wouldn't ever have connected that it could have been related to work. Then user 2 commented and said,
Not the a-hole. Can you lay it out clearly for your wife that you don't understand what went wrong? Hell, maybe just show her this post. I'm assuming the anger is out of character for her, so a conversation is a good idea.
Yeah, neither of us are angry people, and that's the biggest reason I posted. She's been pretty annoyed with me before, but this is different. Then user 3 commented and said,
I am not seeing anything that you did wrong here. Do you know why she was 20 minutes late getting dressed? Maybe the reason she was late getting ready is tied to what made her get upset. Taking the dog out was not wrong. It isn't like you walked around the block, you stayed in your own yard.
Yeah, she had gotten ready at our neighbor and her friend's house up a small hill and walked back over, but took a tumble on the way. She wasn't hurt at all, but she had to change her dress and fix her hair. Not the first time she's fallen like that, and I worry about it, but she says it isn't a big deal. Then user 4 commented and said,
My dad used to do this action every time we went out. This is his silent way of telling us, hurry up, don't make me wait. Maybe someone did this to your wife in the past, so she got irritated when you did it?
Huh, yeah, she's never said anything about that, but I can see how that would have ticked her off if that's the case. Thank you so much for the advice. And I should edit that thanks into the post. Less than 20 comments and almost every one of them has brought up something I did not think of. And finally, user 6 commented and said,
Not the a-hole. Maybe she has an undiagnosed UTI or she's unaware that she's pregnant and hormonal. If this is not normal, then these are the first 2 medical options. After that, she has built up resentment over something or this is a trigger from her childhood.
UTI? Those are pretty dangerous. I think that's what put my mom in the hospital last time. Do you think that's really a possibility? Then the consensus in the comments section was that OP was not the a-hole. Update. Hello everyone. I feel weird updating, but I have good news, and I want to share somewhere, and I figured this place is as good as any. And actually, I wanted to thank everyone for commenting, and the people who reached out privately with advice. You really helped me calm down and figure out how to approach talking about this while seeing where my wife could have been coming from. One person even called exactly what was going on, something I dismissed right away stupidly. So I came home the next day and brought home pizza from her favorite spot in town, which we never get because of crowds, because I figured even if I wasn't outright wrong, there was no reason not to make the conversation nice. So after dinner, I asked about the dog again, and after a lot of back and forth and crying, then I'll skip explaining, she explained that for the past week or so, she had been feeling weirdly emotional, and she couldn't explain it. Some people had mentioned some things about different health stuff that could cause sort of symptoms. I got pretty nervous and got her in a doctor's office within a couple of days. Well, imagine our embarrassment walking out 5 minutes after getting in and doing a test we could have done at home for like $20 without including insurance. Also, she is going to talk to her therapist about meeting every week for a while she adjusts and deals with hormonal changes. We've been laughing about it now because it never crossed our minds she could have been pregnant. Someone commented about it, but I still didn't believe it because I am dumb. Never mind that we're both in our 20s or that she switched birth control like 2 months ago, and we may or may not have had unprotected sex during the switch week. Anyway, as stupid as we may be, we are still excited, but waiting until the 12-week mark to tell our families. However, I've been itching to tell someone and can't wait any longer. So here's an update. And my wife approved because it's anonymous. Thanks again for the help. I appreciate it a lot, even if I didn't take the advice of the person who was right. Then in the comments section, one user said,
Congratulations, and maybe still have that talk with your neighbor about the path to make sure that she stays safe.
I'm already working on it. The neighbor isn't against the idea, just against paying for it, which is no problem for me since I'm the only one complaining.
Look, we've gotten stories before with one partner or the other, and sometimes the partner just does something or overreacts about something, and you're like, what is going on here? We got all the details, but something doesn't make sense. Oh, I know why. It's pregnant. I don't know how we explain it for the guy. Let's just say the guy hit his head, but the woman's pregnant, and you're like, oh, it makes sense. Or Dave hit his head. It makes sense. All right, Dave, please wear a hard hat. We're concerned about you.
But that's it really. The path is getting cleared, and OP is going to pay for it, and now they have a kid. The end. Next story. Story number 8. My fiance assaulted his BFF at his bachelor party. I don't know what to do. My 28F fiance 28M Alex has a BFF, Danny 28, since they were 4. She's not like the usual Reddit BFF. She's a lovely, sweet person who has never crossed boundaries with Alex or their 2 other friends, Marcus and Daniel. The 4 are very close. Danny is gay and always was, and she's very much a woman but likes to dress in jeans and t-shirts and not in any feminine clothing. She is lean, tall, has short hair, and is just one of the boys in a lot of ways. This weekend was Alex's bachelor party, and all 4 plus 2 other of Alex's friends went along. It was to a coastal town that's well known for hosting bachelor and bachelorette parties, but there's no strip club or anything. They stayed in a B&B and have scuba diving, kayaking planned. The first night went okay with dinner restaurants and a nightclub, and then they went home. Last night was the issue. They did the nightclub and headed back to the house. Marcus and Daniel, who are both single, brought back 2 girls from the nightclub and got busy in their bedrooms. The rest were drinking in the living room, but things got a bit loud, and the 2 friends started complaining that they didn't get to see boobs and ass because they went to the strip club, and they were blaming their wives and calling them names. Danny told them to shush as it was ruining the mood, and they both thought it would be funny if they saw Danny's body naked to make up for it. The thing is, Alex joined in and they stripped her. She was screaming loudly, and Marcus and Daniel came running in and rescued Danny and put her in the bedroom with the girls and had a fight with the 3 men. Danny doesn't drink due to a chronic medical condition and the medication that she is on. So they packed up and took Danny and the 2 girls and left the other 3. Danny was hysterical, and Marcus wanted her to go to the police, but she wouldn't. She was afraid to go home, so they ended up dropping the girls off and taking Danny to her parents, which was an hour away. Marcus was at my door at 7 a.m. this morning, and he told me what happened, that if he ever sees Alex again, he's afraid of how things could go. And he told me that if he can convince Danny to press charges, he will. Then he left. Alex returned at about 3 this afternoon, and he was acting normally until I told him Marcus had visited, and he was very nervous and tried to play down what happened as a joke that got out of hand. And I'm devastated. I heard him out, but he knew I wasn't accepting what he was saying, and I told him Danny may be going to the police, and he got very panicked and pale, and he said she had blocked him and he wanted to go talk to her. I told him she wasn't at her place as she was too afraid he or his buddies would turn up there, and I asked him to leave, and he didn't want to go, but I insisted. He was crying, saying it was a prank that got out of hand. I heard him out only as a courtesy to our 2-year relationship, but I'm done. I don't know this man. I don't know if I should reach out to Danny or just do nothing. Marcus and I have been in constant contact, and he agrees that I have no option but to end things. I don't know where to start with canceling everything, as the wedding was in 5 weeks, but it seems trivial compared to what Danny is going through right now. Marcus is convinced that Danny is going to the police after talking to her parents, so I think Alex is in trouble. I can't support him on this. Maybe I'm wrong, as he was drunk and probably had taken other things, but this was his friend from the age of 4, and he did this to her. I've not blocked Alex, but I've not replied or picked up any of his calls. Update. It has been a terrible day. I can't reach out to my friends yet as I'm ashamed. I did tell my parents and my brother, and they have been wonderful. My brother brought his friend with him when he came to stay, and today both of them packed up every bit of my ex's stuff and took it to his parents' house. X was there and just asked if that meant I was finished with him, and my brother said yes, and did he really expect any other reaction? His father then intervened and told my ex not to say anything more, and he told my brother to tell me to contact him on canceling the wedding, but I'm not contacting his father ever. My parents are handling the canceling of the wedding, and my father got into my cousin, who is a lawyer, and he is going to help and advise me as needed. Me, I've got to disentangle myself from my ex on leases, bank accounts, and savings and such. Although my brother made me transfer all of my money from a joint savings account and daily accounts to my own account, it's still a mess. I tried to ring Danny, but she isn't up for speaking to anyone, so I just texted her that I was there for her, and that I had broken up with Alex. She hasn't replied, and I don't expect she will. She's in a bad way, apparently. Daniel spent 3 hours with me today. There's a lot going on, but I'm afraid to say too much for fear of damaging any court case. Just to say that there are 2 videos of the incident, one by Jeb, one of the 2 friends, and a lot of it is chaotic, but the last part is clear and telling, apparently. And the owners of the rental house apparently have gotten involved and have footage, but I can't say more. When Marcus left me, he went to both guys' wives and told them what happened. Jeb's wife has been very helpful, apparently, quickly as she has split from him. The other guy's wife left him too. Things are going how most of you want them to go, so that's all I will say. And, well, I will add it was worse than what Marcus shared. Daniel told me that before Danny found her style, she had long hair and dressed feminine, and it was stunningly beautiful, and all three of them were in love with her as teens. Alex took her rejection very personally, apparently, and Daniel says he was angry and bitter for a couple of years, but hid it from her. They thought he had gotten over it, but Daniel feels that this smacks of revenge against her, and it's scary if this is true. I have and continue to receive hundreds of texts from Alex. He told me that his father told him to stop texting me, but he can't. I haven't replied or blocked based on advice, and this is very hard, and I don't know what way all this is going to end up. Sorry about any mistakes and typos. I'm not doing well, and if there's more, I will post again if I'm able to. Update number 2. I got a call from Danny. Daniel has been ever present, and I'm guessing it was because he knew she was going to call, and there's a lot more to the story. The first night was normal, as I said, but in the Saturday, Alex, Jeb, and their friend decided to not go scuba diving with Daniel, Danny, and Marcus. And Danny was feeling very hungover and gave up after an hour and went back to the Airbnb. She walked into the living room to find all three guys engaging in sexual acts with two women. Jeb shouted at her to get out as this was costing them a fortune. The women were escorts. She left and went back to the boat and only told Marcus what she saw. When they all went back later, Alex told her not to tell me as it was just his last bit of freedom. She told him that she was disgusted with him and that he wasn't free. She told him that she would have to think about what to do, and Marcus convinced her to stay another night as he and Daniel had met the two girls the night before and were seeing them again that night. And if Danny wanted to leave, then Daniel would have to take her, as he was her ride and there wasn't public transport in the tiny town. So Alex cheated, as did the other two. Marcus told their wives that morning, but not me. He was going to do it in stages as he knew I was in shock, and the actual assault went further than what Marcus told me also. And while Alex hadn't actually done anything beyond pulling off her clothes, unlike the other two, he stood by and watched it and did nothing to help her. She said she thought he had taken shrooms earlier, but couldn't be sure. Marcus and Daniel did rescue her, but things had already escalated. She went to the police immediately. She got to her parents. The Airbnb owners had also gone independently when they saw the footage, and all three men are facing the consequences of their actions. Danny told me she was sorry that she didn't leave and tell me immediately like she wanted to. She is very distraught still, and I didn't want to make things worse for her. I don't think I am in need of any legal proceedings, so I finally blocked Alex and his parents. The wedding is canceled, and I'm just starting to disentangle myself from Alex on bank accounts and such. Here's my issue. I'm feeling very angry towards Marcus. It feels like he didn't really care about me. He stopped Danny from telling me so he could continue to shack up with the girl he met. He apparently feels guilty because if they had left, Danny would not have been attacked. He didn't do me the courtesy of telling me that Alex cheated that morning, like he did with the other two wives. It's not like he was sparing my feelings because my ex assaulting another woman was a pretty damn bad thing to hear. He didn't tell me the full extent of the attack. And Danny is still unsure if Alex wasn't just waiting his turn or all he was going to do was watch. I should have been told that ASAP, and not from Danny because the conversation was incredibly difficult for her. Daniel didn't know about the escorts at all, and didn't know Marcus hadn't shared the full story of what they saw when they burst in. Daniel has been my rock. I need some perspective here. Is it okay to be angry at Marcus? Is it misplaced anger? I'm pretty angry at Alex though, and that's all I feel towards him. Can anyone give me a different perspective that I'm missing? Marcus and I have been in constant contact, and he's already back at work, so it was messages and texts and occasional calls. He actually visited last night, but I didn't open the door to him. Daniel is saying whatever I feel right now is okay, but I think he's just placating me. I don't know who to trust anymore. I don't have to have any more contact with Alex, and I think the case will move along without me. And I'm thinking of telling Daniel that I need a break from him, and Marcus and that group of friends. Danny and I have said we will stay in touch, but I can't see us being very close. My best friend, who I finally confided in, thinks I should just step away from them all now for good and try to move forward. My parents agree and think it's necessary for healing. My brother thinks Daniel has been nothing but great and I shouldn't cut him off, but they all seem to be a package deal, but without Alex now, obviously. So I think it's probably all or nothing. What should I do? I don't want to be ungrateful, but a clean break feels right. So from my perspective, I feel like OP should just go for the clean break and just, start off on a new clean slate. Like, these aren't her best friends. They aren't her BFFs. They haven't known each other since childhood. Those are her ex's friends. And I'm sure there was some overlap. And I'm sure she could even say that she's friends with them. But probably for her mental health, it's probably best to just cut it clean. Just cut it loose. I think it's good to still be there for Danny, but like OP said, they're probably not going to be close, and they weren't very close prior, you know what I mean? So I don't know if Danny's going to confide in OP, but it's good just to have that avenue open because OP was with the ex, the man in question, one of the assailants. So, but I feel like for OP's sake, since this story is mainly about OP, I think she just needs to cut him off. It's a big mess. There's so many factors and relationships and connections and stuff like that. And, you know, these aren't even her people. You know what I mean? So I think she just needs to get away from all of this because it's a mess. But that's what I think. Anyway, next story. Story number 9. Am I the a-hole for leaving a drunk girl alone at a bar? This involves me, 32M, Matt, 30M, Matt's girlfriend Lisa, 28F, and her friend Jane, 20s. So, 2 days back, it was Matt's birthday. He invited me and a few of our friends to a small birthday dinner at this restaurant, which is also kind of a bar. The plan was to eat, drink, and chill. Matt's girlfriend Lisa also invited a few of her own friends. It was a group of around 15 people. I mostly hung out with my own friends and Matt, and Lisa's friends with her. One of Lisa's friends, Jane, kept trying to talk to me throughout the evening. It was kind of awkward for me as I'm an introvert, and the conversations with her felt like they were going nowhere. At around 12, I decided to head back home. Jane came up to me and told me that even she wanted to go back home. I was like, okay, cool. Then she asked me if I could drop her off at her house. And I asked where she lived, and she told me some address that wasn't even on my way. So I told her to ask someone else to drop her off. She asked me if I was sure I couldn't, and I was like, yep, absolutely. And Jane was visibly drunk, but I figured she had like a group of friends, so someone would give her a ride. Also, I was tired as F and just wanted to go back home and sleep. The next morning, I woke up to some very angry messages from Lisa. She was furious at me for leaving Jane alone at the party. Apparently, they all assumed since I was hanging out with Jane, I would have the decency to drop her back home. I told her that I talked to Jane for a total of like 15 minutes in the entire 3 to 4 hours, and I don't understand why everyone wanted me to be her personal chauffeur. All of her friends obviously think I'm a huge a-hole, and Matt has decided to stay neutral on this. Then in the comments section, OP elaborated on what does Jane think and said, apparently, even Jane thinks I'm an a-hole for not dropping her home, and I'm actually kind of stumped at their behavior, not gonna lie. Then OP elaborated on the feelings or lack thereof for Jane and said, I'm pretty sure Jane is in her early 20s. Part of the reason the conversations were awkward with her was because she sounded like a kid to me. I felt there was a generational gap. Hooking up was out of the question. I'm about to be 33, and I'm guessing Jane is younger than 25. Then one user commented and said, hey, OP, Matt doesn't seem like much of a friend, bud. I feel Matt is just trying not to piss off his girlfriend, and I don't blame him, honestly. Then the consensus in the comments section was that OP was not the a-hole. Update. Well, Lisa has entirely stopped talking to me after the incident. Not that we were close before, but she would sometimes send reels to me on Instagram or something, and Matt was also being distant. But whatever, I got busy with work and forgot about it. Then, a week after said incident, Matt texted me saying he needed a favor. He said he wanted me to apologize to Jane. I was like, F no, I'm not apologizing to her. Matt said that he knows that it's not my fault at all, and he's tried to explain this to Lisa, but she's adamant that I was an a-hole to Jane, and made Lisa look bad in front of her. Apparently, Lisa gave Matt an ultimatum, saying that if I don't apologize to her and Jane, Matt needs to cut me off. This honestly was some high school level BS that Lisa was partaking in, and very toxic. And I told Matt the same thing, but he was really desperate and pathetically sad. So I agreed to text Jane an apology. I texted her something along the lines of, hey, sorry I didn't drop you off at your place like you asked. I was really tired and wasn't thinking, my bad. And she replied with, it's all right, don't worry about it. But this apparently made Jane think I'm interested in her or something, and I felt like an absolute idiot for agreeing to apologize, and she started texting me a lot. In the beginning, I gave one-word replies, but then her texting increased a lot, and I straight up hit her with, please stop texting me, I'm not interested. This hurt her, and she snitched about this to Lisa. Again, high school BS, and Lisa started threatening Matt to go no contact with me. They fought about this non-issue for like a week, and this made Matt realize that Lisa is really toxic, and they broke up. Jane hasn't tried contacting me either, and life is peaceful for the time being. Yo, bros before gardening tools, what up? I'm glad that Matt didn't stay with the toxic woman, because sometimes in these stories the dude caves and then, you know, it's a complete mess, but that didn't happen here. Matt's a little slow, but he gets the point. As for Jane, as for OP, I don't disagree with him. They talked for 15 minutes, and none of the comments mentioned, OP didn't mention, but why did nobody bring up the fact that, like, hey, why didn't you take her home, Lisa? You're her friend. What about all the other friends? Why couldn't they take her home? Where was that point brought up, right? Like,
it shouldn't need to be brought up because, oh, I don't even want to get into it because I'm going to just get so mad. These people are stupid, okay? They're toxic. They're high schoolers, and their frontal lobes are probably still not developed despite their ages. So good on OP, good for Matt eventually. Forget Jane, forget Lisa. Let's go drink a beer. Anyway, next story.
Story number 10. Am I the a-hole for calling my friend a creepy weirdo after she posted a TikTok about my husband? I, 28F, am friends with this girl. Let's call her June, also 28F. In fact, my husband, 32M, and I often hang out with June and her boyfriend, i.e. go on double dates, have weekend trips, etc. We've known each other for over 2 years, and I would say that we four were pretty tight as a group until this weekend. My husband is an orthodontist, and one of his patients is June's half-sister, Raya, 12F. June is often the one accompanying Raya to her dental appointments. June is also a small-time online influencer. She's always recording and vlogging and stuff, and though my husband and I have made it clear to her and we're absolutely not okay with our faces in her vlogs online, she seems to have respected that boundary. We don't use social media, apart from Reddit, and we trusted her word when she said she's not gonna post us online. Cut to last weekend, my brother sent me this TikTok link with the message, "Dude, you gotta watch this," and I opened the link and it directed me to June's TikTok account. She doesn't have much followers, less than 10K, but the particular video he sent me had like 500,000 views/likes, I'm not sure which, but lo and behold, it was a video compilation of my husband with the title, "God, I see what you've done for others." And the video was honestly the creepiest thing I've ever seen. She had recorded my husband during various of our double dates together, and it was clear he wasn't even aware he's being recorded. In some of the clips, she would start with her face and then pan the camera towards my husband with a cutesy expression and mouthing words like, "Oh my God." And the worst one was when he was working on her half-sister Raya wearing scrubs, and she'd recorded even that. She didn't even bother to blur out the kid's face while she was lying on the dental chair. I showed the video to my husband and he was horrified. He said it made him so uncomfortable and violated knowing that someone had been secretly recording him, and he was also angry that she had recorded him working on a patient. He texted her, asking her to take down the video and delete every video that she has of him. First, she feigned ignorance that she said that she meant no harm and that it was all for online engagement, since, and I quote, "TikToks with hot guys go viral very fast," and that she had gained a lot of followers after posting that. This was all so weird, but my husband and I got our families and friends to report the video, and thankfully it's being taken down now. This pissed off June, and she sent me a long-ass text message saying how I was jealous of her online success, and that I couldn't stand seeing her succeed, blah, 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 blah. I replied saying, "You're delusional and unhinged. You're not successful, and you never will be. Stay away from us, you creepy weirdo." Now, she's all weepy and depressed and has been telling our common friends how mean I was to her. And she's also been posting about mental health on her socials and about how mean some women are with their words. So, am I the a-hole? Then the consensus in the comment section was that OP was not the a-hole. Then one user commented and said, "Not the a-hole. You and your husband had set clear boundaries and she violated those boundaries. This shows that she does not respect y'all at all, and I recommend cutting her off entirely, as anyone who disturbs your peace is not worth your time." Yes, we are cutting her off entirely. I don't know if her boyfriend is aware of this or not, but I guess he'll have to be collateral damage because I don't want her to weasel her way back into our lives. Then user 2 commented and said, "Not the a-hole. People who think online engagement is more important than basic human decency are sadly not at all uncommon, and they are, as you say, delusional and unhinged. Their success is not real, and except in a very few cases, it never will be." It's psychotic, honestly. My husband is so freaked out about this, and I feel so bad for him. Then user 3 commented and said, "He might need to drop the half-sister as a patient and or tell the parents that she, June, is not allowed to accompany her anymore. I agree, that is a creepy weirdo. If she can't get followers or likes without lying and getting consent for people to be recorded, then she needs to find a new career." Yes, he's in the process of informing her parents, and I don't think he's going to drop her as a patient as her treatment is almost done, and it's going to be a hassle for her to find a new orthodontist. And finally, user 4 commented and said, "He needs to ban her sister, your former friend, from the room while he is treating the patient. He needs to have a female staff member assist him and act as a chaperone should your friend try to make baseless accusations." There's actually a rule in this practice that a female dental assistant has to be present whenever they, the male doctors, are working on female patients, as most of the patients are young kids and teens, and they might be more comfortable with a woman around. Even in the video she posted, there is a woman assisting my husband. He's reached out to the kids' parents, and they've been given 2 options. Either they chaperone their daughter, or they need to find a different orthodontist. I really hope it doesn't come to baseless accusations, though. Update 2 days later. I don't want to make another post for the same thing, and I doubt I'm going to be updating again. 1. My husband's practice reached out to Ryan's parents and informed them about the situation via an email, as they wanted everything documented, like I mentioned in the comments. The parents have responded, and they are shocked and very, very apologetic. They have agreed to chaperone Raya on her appointments instead of June, and they wanted to meet my husband personally to apologize, but he informed them that won't be necessary. 2. June's TikTok video is still in the process of being taken down. No new updates on that, and I guess she contested the reports or something, I'm not entirely sure. My husband and I have blocked her, and my brother is keeping an eye on her account though, just in case she posts something else about us. We will see what to do if/when it happens, and we're going to be consulting a lawyer if she bothers us again in the future. 3. My husband is still kind of shaken up/upset/annoyed about this whole thing, and he's taken some days off from work, and so have I. We'll plan a trip somewhere maybe to take his mind off of things, but right now, I need to be there for him, and I won't be posting anything for now. And 4, we haven't contacted her boyfriend yet. My husband is not in the right headspace right now, and I feel it'll be better if we focus on ourselves for the time being. We don't want the added headache of how the boyfriend will react/if he's in on this or whatever, and we will inform him after some time. I know this is selfish, but I think it's for the best.
Well then, I guess one thing we can learn from this is that OP's husband is really hot. As for the story though, it's a terrible joke. As for the story though, I mean, I feel like nobody's gonna be in June's camp here. No reasonable person at least. And I'm gonna say, if somebody's on their phone all the time, for me, if somebody's on their phone all the time and always needs to record and always needs to take pictures, that's a red flag for me. Like romantically, friendshiply, familyly, okay? I don't want to be around those people. They make me sick and disgusted and gross, and this is one of the reasons. June gives influencers a bad name. Just kidding, they don't need June to do that. But I think OP and the hubby made the right choice of just cutting them off. That's obvious, they should do that. I'm sure some people might not be happy about telling the husband because he does need to know at some point, but also, you know, they're going through a lot. The husband was violated, right? It doesn't need to be physically, but he was violated and unconsensually recorded and just showed off and paraded and objectified online, right? Like, it doesn't matter, male or female. That's a horrible thing to happen to you. And he didn't even know about it. So, you know, to hell with June, and hopefully they tell the husband at some point. But anyway, next story. Story number 11. I just got a collection letter in the mail, and my credit has dropped to $590. Parents opened up a credit card in my name and ran up $8,000 in debt. They told me they would write me out of their will if I say it was them. On Monday, I received a letter in the mail from what looks to be a legit collection agency. It says this is an attempt to collect a debt and points me to a website where I can enter all of my information and pay it. Of course, this looks suspicious since I've never had the credit card that they say that I have, so I checked my credit. And to my horror, there it was, opened last year and for the same amount of money that the collection agency wants. I called the credit card company directly, and they said the address they had on file for me was my parents' house, where I haven't lived in more than 5 years. The card was used almost exclusively in the area right around where my parents live, and none of my siblings live around there either, which made me believe my parents did this. When I asked them about it, they denied everything, and I finally told them I had a list of places where it was used, and I could get more information, and they flipped. They called me ungrateful and demanding, obviously trying to gaslight me. Finally, they told me to either drop it or report the card as stolen to try to get it off my record. They say if I reported it to the police, they would take me out of their will. I never expected an inheritance at all, but now I'm weighing the pros and cons to all of this, and I'm trying to buy a house next year, and I don't think I'll be able to with this on my credit. What's my best course of action here? Update. I went to the police station about it and gave the collection agency a copy of the report. I also gave the credit card company a copy of the report, and the collection is no longer on my credit, and I'm guessing my dispute with the credit card will be found in my favor shortly as well. Also, it looks like they did the same thing to my sister. She went to the police and disputed the account as well. Hers still hasn't fallen off yet, but she was told by the cops that it will. And I got a letter from the prosecutor's office this morning saying they are declining to file charges on this case. It's a form letter that they basically got away with, and I haven't spoken with them since I found out. So, good news is my credit is already improving. Bad news is there are no consequences for doing this. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, just because the prosecutor will not prosecute does not mean the credit card companies won't go after them.
Then user 2 commented and said,
exactly. Civil case incoming. OP should sue. Lien against assets. Inheritance secured.
Then user 3 said,
if your parents need to open credit cards in their children's names, how much do you actually think you will inherit?
And finally, user 4 commented and said,
Consequences. Credit card companies will collect this debt from the fraudsters, and they have wrecked their relationship with you. So, OP didn't give us the details, but what could they possibly need $16,000 for, assuming that they took the same amount from the daughter? A giant water slide? Because I've seen the prices. They don't cost that much. Maybe they're looking to get a hot tub and a gazebo in the backyard. See what I did there? It's continuity between the stories. But I mean, to hell with them. Forget them. This isn't the first time we've had stories where parents try to take or successfully take out credit cards in their children's names. It's horrible and awful, and they should explode and go to jail or be punished or something. So, I mean, hopefully they do get punished because, I mean, you can't get away with that. You did it to both kids. Good grief. Anyway, next story. Story number 12. My fiance of 5 years just requested we open the relationship, and that request sent me spiraling. This situation is just so strange and uncomfortable, and wherever I turn to support, I always get brushed off with, "It's not a big deal," or, "Well, he just asked," and I lack any real support or validation. I can't go to my parents, so I'm hoping a bunch of strangers on Reddit might offer more help than my social circle has so far. I, 28F, and my fiance John, 28M, have been together for, as the title says, about 5 years. To understand the dilemma, I need to give you some background. We both came from very religious backgrounds, though it affected both of us very differently. John became a problem child, running away, causing problems, and eventually finding a crowd his parents would not approve of. Most of the members of this group were a part of the LGBTQ+, smoked pot, engaged in protests, and were either atheist or practiced different religions. Although some of the members have since left, this crowd became his current friend group. I won't go into details about each and every one of them, but the main ringleaders are Alex, 35 non-binary, and Avery, 33M. From what I understand, they collect damaged people, as John jokingly said one day, and let them couch surf when things get rough. Alex is some sort of nepo baby, and Avery works in IT or something like that, and John met them when he was 15. At first, I thought they seemed very cool, and I couldn't wait to meet them, since John equated their relationship to that of a child and a parent, so clearly very important people in his life. But when I finally met them, we were 21 and in college and home for the summer break, the meeting left me a bit disillusioned. Alex was catty and had snide remarks, since I wasn't LGBTQ+ or anything, at most bi-curious, and Avery treated me like a child, but John always said they needed new people to break in. So I tried to think positive and did my best to impress them with what I was studying and what my plans for the future are, both regarding me personally and my relationship. But the more I talked, the more they seemed to disapprove of me. Despite the strange meeting, John seemed ecstatic to see them again and gushed about how much they liked me, so I kept my mouth shut and just nodded along. Now, to understand a bit deeper on who Alex and Avery are, in the town they live in, they're something like local celebrities, very spiritual, their home is full of souvenirs they accumulated over all their travels, and are also married, but their definition of marriage is very different from the traditional one. Apparently, they went to some tropical state and took some hallucinogens together, and in their state, they proclaimed everlasting love for one another. Quite a wild concept for someone like me, but I learned to be more open-minded since I left for college. That being said, they also said that they can see auras, whatever that is, and apparently loves my fiancés. I don't know what they think of mine, but it probably isn't much. Which brings us to the topic I came here with. Last week, after we got home from work, John sat me down and asked me what I think about being in a polygamous relationship. He said he loves me so much, more than is possible, and doesn't know what to do with the rest of it, thinking that it's fair to give it to someone else. I, on the other hand, don't have a limit of how much I can love him, so I said no, and that was that. However, the question has been plaguing my mind ever since. If you knew John for just a fraction of who he was, you'd know that he researches about things long before he actually commits to anything, any lifestyle or relationship changes, whatever. This makes me think that he has already thought about it for a while, and that he also consulted with Alex and or Avery about this. I don't want to villainize them, but I know for a fact they are not in a monogamous relationship, and they clearly don't like me as the rest of their little group. Again, I don't want to point fingers, and I won't ask John to show me his messages with them unless I have a solid proof that isn't just a gut feeling, but I just have this horrible feeling that they have somehow pulled in John. There's no way he just thought about it suddenly on his own. 5 years of a relationship, and the idea of non-monogamy was never brought up. And now suddenly, just as we're about to be married, he brings this up? I don't buy it one bit, but I can't just go ahead and confront them now, can I? I just don't know what to do. I feel stuck. At home, I can
pretend everything is fine since my group of close friends told me that I'm just overthinking, and I believed it for a while, but whenever I look at John, all I can think of is he thinks there's a cap on how much he can love me, and he wants to love someone else. I want to deal with this, but I don't know how. If I bring it up with John, he'll just brush it off as well, or he'll think I'm cheating or don't trust his friends. I worked hard to get their approval, and I know for a fact John shares everything with them. He wouldn't keep this for himself. I just hope that someone here can give me pointers on how to proceed. Thanks. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said,
If you don't swing that way, then end it. It'll only get worse once you're married. This is not something you can compromise on. He wants to F other people while you do not.
God, the idea of ending our relationship is so scary. I feel like I built my entire life since leaving for college around him, and if we separate, I'm worried I'm going to fall apart. But I understand where you're coming from. I need more time to process the reality of it all. And then user 2 commented and said,
Don't let them brainwash you. There are plenty of cases with people who are pulled into someone else's lifestyle and then randomly dropped. It will leave you wondering who you even are. I've been there, and it ruined me. What happens if you drink the Kool-Aid and they reject you later? It's hard to come back from that. And I'm not saying this as a matter based solely on sexual preference either. New age mumbo-jumbo or auras mixed with radical changes in sexual interest can really F a person up. A lot of people like this function almost like a give mind or the popular clique in a high school. If you already feel like you're being pushed away from the group and now he's making this request, it's a bad sign. Also, the idea of him having so much love that it's unfair to only give it to you is such a horrible cop-out and a very common excuse people use when trying to convince their SO to try poly or open. It's often used to guilt people. It's almost like he's suggesting that you are greedy for wanting to keep your relationship personal and exclusive. And I'd just say be careful. I don't want you to end up hurt like I was. Dedicating yourself to one person while their character and lifestyle is completely changing can end up with you getting hurt bad. If he is sincerely changing in this way, I'd be worried about how much you invest in him. I only say this because I was fully invested in my ex, and she started hanging out with a small group of college friends more frequently towards the end. And one day we got into a small argument over parking, and it ended with her saying she wasn't certain what sex she was attracted to anymore, and wasn't sure if she was even female anymore, and that we had to end things. Now, I would have been fine with helping them figure themselves out, but for her, it kind of just became her excuse to break up with me. And I think it was more about her/them wanting to have fun and was influenced by her group of friends all being single or experimenting who all came out around the same time. I think she saw them having fun and felt FOMO, to be honest. So to her, she was getting her chance to catch up on fun that she may have missed out on being in a relationship. And to me, it was losing a piece of myself that I invested years of love into.
Wow, I'm really sorry that you had to go through that. I really hope John isn't using this as a maneuvering tactic to get out of the relationship or a chance to catch up. It doesn't sound like him, but I will keep this in mind. Update. Thank you all so much for the nice replies and genuine advice that you've offered. Not to sound cliche, but I didn't expect over 100 comments and some nice DMs. I'm sorry I didn't respond much. The whole situation was kind of emotionally draining. I figured I would update when something major happens, and I think this is it. But before I get ahead of myself, let me fill in some blanks in my story. Me and John came from similar backgrounds, but my family was a bit less strict, allowing me to go to college since I had great grades. The plan for me was to move back after getting a degree, finding a job, a husband, and living the traditional life, which obviously didn't happen because I met John, who literally changed my trajectory of my life. After a year, I switched from my first major to one I liked more, and it's been a while since I contacted my parents. They didn't approve, of course, but with John's help, I didn't give in to their demands to come back. Now they know I'm getting married and are invited, but the last time we spoke was about 2 months ago, and John is completely no contact with his parents since 18. I didn't talk about the friend group in more detail at first, since I didn't think they were that important, but they do like me. At first, they were obviously a bit unsure, since to them, I was a cis white-passing woman, but they warmed up to me, and I'm proud to call them my friends. The only people who didn't fully accept me are Avery and Alex, and since me and John got together officially, they tend to call me the wife in this strange, almost derogatory manner. It's not an important detail, but it gets on my nerves. Lastly, John is aware that opening up the relationship would lead to being intimate physically or emotionally with other people, but he said it's a great chance for me to explore my bisexual side, though I haven't expressed the desire to really be with a woman in a committed relationship of that magnitude. Now, on to what happened. I shot a message to John 2 days ago that we need to talk. He works from home. I don't, so as soon as I got home, we sat down to have an in-depth conversation about his proposal. I think he knew what it was going to be about, and I had the feeling he seemed almost guilty. apology, but I ignored that and basically word vomited everything that's been on my mind. And this is embarrassing because I wrote down most of what the comments advised and was prepared to have a mature discussion. But by the end of my easily 15-minute rant, I was in tears and he had to hold me. Otherwise, I'd crumble completely. The gist of what I said is that I'm hurt that he wants to F other people, and that he doesn't care that I'd F other people too. That he believes there's a limit to how much he can love me, and that I can't see where all of this comes from, and that he just sprung this on me out of nowhere just a few months before we were to be wed. We tried to have a mature discussion, yes, but by the end, he was frustrated. He did apologize for making me feel less than, but said that my outlook on an open relationship is selfish. What it all boiled down to was that he feels he didn't have enough time to find himself before he committed to me, which is bullcrap, because he didn't show any signs of wanting more than I could offer. We were very happy throughout the 5 years, and I really believed I met my soulmate. I realized that since we were engaged, he seemed to talk more to his friend group, and by extension, to Avery and Alex. Again, I don't want to paint them as these cartoonish villains. They're really interesting and all, but now I want nothing more than to scratch those self-absorbed, smug smiles off their faces. In the end, I demanded to see his phone, and he was shocked. And we had a rule that we can see each other's phones, but we don't share passwords or anything, since relationship is built on trust, and neither wanted to be a prison guard in the relationship. Nevertheless, he unlocked his phone and handed it over to me, and I searched his messages, even deleted ones, and found nothing out of the ordinary. Then I checked the call logs, and guess effing what? Hours-long calls to either Avery or Alex, and I was fuming, and I asked him what the hell does he need to discuss with them this long? And mind you, these dated months back. John eventually caved in and admitted that it was them who brought up the idea of an open relationship, but they also talked about everything else since they're such role models, and John admitted that he started getting cold feet a while ago and needed a safe place to discuss this. I guess I, his wife-to-be, am not safe? Please make it make sense. Why even marry me then? He promised we'd go to a couples counselor and fix all of this, his issues with marriage, the open relationship thing, the whole 9 yards, and that he'd book an emergency session with his therapist. That he loves me and wants nothing but to be with me. It was late, so we went to bed, and despite how messy this all sounds, I was a bit more reassured by this. I genuinely love him, even if my post doesn't reflect that very well. Though many people said to just leave, I wanted that to be the last resort, and I was willing to jump through hoops to make this work. But guess who's the idiot? This morning, I woke up to an empty apartment and a message on my phone from John, saying that he needs a few days to think this all over and he needs space. He didn't say where he was going or when he'd come back. I called and messaged everyone I know, but no one can tell me where John is. And I told him that either he comes back home in 24 hours or this is over. As you can imagine, I'm a wreck. And I took the rest of the week off, and between crying sessions and staring blankly into the wall, I obsessively checked my messages in hopes of someone telling me where John is. To be honest, if he's willing to put me through this, I'm not sure I want to be with him. How can you do this to someone you love? Ah, yes, the progressive yet intolerant hippies. We don't get enough of those these days. You know, we gotta mix up intolerance, guys, okay? It can't just always be old racist people. That's a joke, by the way. But on a more serious note, I think OP's starting to realize what I feel like a lot of people realized reading her updates and her stories, and what you probably realized, which is this relationship wasn't going to work out. Unfortunately, typically in these cases, it's usually one or both of the partners who are last to realize this. And like OP said, if he's willing to put her through this, then, you know, is it even worth it? I personally don't think so, and I think she's gonna come to terms with this. I feel like in the first update, or the first part of the story, we had this perspective of like this shy, timid woman, and then I feel like in the second half, she was like, I need to see it now, pull the phone out. Like, it's just, I felt like a different person was telling the story during that confrontation. Also, I would just like to point out that she didn't actually say anything positive about John throughout the whole story. I think she said, like, he's a great guy and that's it. But again, I'm not saying that's definitive proof or anything, but just nothing positive about him was said. And even from early on, it didn't sound much compatible to me. And then I heard about Alex and Avery being involved and heard the word Nepo baby and went, ugh. And then they said they could see auras. And I was like, oh my God, I know one of you is employed, but get a job, you hippies. Next story. Story number 13. Am I the a-hole if I break up with my fiance after she showed a startling change of behavior after getting engaged? I am 32 just recently proposed to my girlfriend of 2 years, Shannon, F30, like a month and a half ago, and it feels like the second the ring got on her finger, her attitude and behavior took a total 180. The entire time we were dating, we seemed exceptionally compatible, and at least it seemed we shared common beliefs and morals. 7 weeks ago, I proposed, and she said yes, and I felt like it was the happiest moment for the two of us. But not even a week later, it's like her attitude totally flipped. I thought I knew all her friends, but one day I came home and there were 6 women I've never seen before, and Shannon introduced me to them. I was curious as to why I was just now meeting them when I already met Shannon's 2 best friends, Michelle and Octavia, both not present, over a year and a half ago. Shannon said she wanted to make sure we were a sure thing before I met her inner circle. I found this strange, not to mention it was a weeknight, so they were quickly draining my wine rack of wine, and Sharon still had her own place, but she stayed with me so often she practically lives here. Still, I found it incredibly rude when they left with 4 empty bottles of rosé in their wake. I tried to talk to Shannon about having uninvited guests on weeknights, and she dismissed my grievance very flippantly, more that she brushed me off. The following weeks, she went out with the girls several times, and when she brought the girls to my place, twice without notice, once with notice to appease me, her words, they all treated me like a butler, shaking their empty wine glasses at me for refills. After the 4th time, I made it clear I will get a locked wine rack, and Shannon just called me no fun after that. And it gets worse. Shannon decided that me and the girls got off on the wrong foot and said we should have dinner together at a nice restaurant. Well, I went, and it was not great. The 6 kept probing me about my life, my house, my career, but deflected every question I asked. It got especially bad that night when they were starting to talk about modern relationships and jealousy, and one of them brought up some key points about relationships that I thought Shannon and I were on the same page about, specifically what-ifs regarding polygamy and being friends with exes. To my shock, Shannon said we shouldn't be too hasty on such decisions, which was a total 180 to how she expressed herself on these things only a month prior, where she was vehemently against keeping ex-intimate partners in friend circles, and was staunchly monogamous. The worst part was when the bill arrived. Shannon announced that it would be together and slid me the check. I told her that she can't be serious, and we got into a bit of an argument. I ended it by putting my amount down in cash and walked out, leaving them to figure out the rest of the bill. The next days after that, Shannon kept calling me toxic and fragile, but every time I even pushed at it, she would give me an apology and promised she was just stressed at work. It's nuts, and we haven't even planned the wedding yet. The worst part was this Monday when at work I got a Nest doorbell alert, checked, and saw that Shannon and one of her 6 new friends arriving at my place, going in and exiting with my golf clubs. The set was a gift from my father, and it cost a pretty penny too, so Shannon lending it out without my permission got me pissed. I immediately called Shannon and told her and her friend to return the clubs. Shannon tried to gaslight me and told me, "But you promised to lend the clubs to her boyfriend, remember?" And I told her the clubs cost would move it into a serious crime, and her friend had an hour to return them or the cops would be called. Shannon kept insisting she got my permission, and I told her to cut the crap. Well, not 45 minutes later, I got another notification of Shannon and her friend coming back with the clubs, going inside, leaving them, and then Shannon's friend flipping off the Nest doorbell on the way out. I got home and saw that Shannon's friend literally just threw the clubs back onto the living room floor. Shannon tried to talk to me about my toxicity again, and I told her to cut the crap. And I said if I knew this was how she was, I would have never proposed. That seemed to freak her out, and again she insisted that she was stressed from work, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her to return the ring and her key, and we would talk about our relationship this weekend. She cried and begged me not to cancel the engagement, and insisted that it was just stress. And I told her again, we will talk about it this weekend. She finally relented, and I had my house rekeyed anyways after she left, just to be safe. Shannon has been texting me constant messages of love and apologies for getting swept up, and insisted she was only wanting to show me off to her close friends. I don't know. I'm just not buying it. The same close friends have been sending me text messages daily calling me toxic and fragile. Again, saying they knew I wasn't man enough for Shannon or secure enough to share her with her friends. A few of my friends that knew Shannon the entire 2 years we were dating were surprised and can't believe she turned hide this quick, and that there must be something missing or that I'm leaving something out. They say I must have said something to trigger her friends to act like this, and I had to have been the a-hole somewhere along the process. And I don't know. It's That's a lot to take from all directions right now. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said,
I bet OP hasn't seen Octavia and Michelle anymore. They did their purpose and now the ex is too stressed out from work to meet both of her friends.
I did message Michelle on Facebook last night, and I asked her about the 6, and she told me that her, Octavia, and Shannon are cousins and grew up together. Michelle said that she didn't really care for the 6, but didn't say much else. Then user 2 commented and said,
Not the a-hole. Your friends are idiots and triggered? Nah, nobody normal comes to someone's house uninvited and drinks a ton of the person's wine without permission.
Again, they knew Shannon for 2 years, and throughout the entire time, Shannon didn't act like this at all. I'll give them some leeway for now. And finally, user 3 commented and said,
2 years and she didn't introduce you to these friends? She knows how terrible they are and how terrible she is with them. She put on quite a show to get the ring, and now that she thought she had you locked down, she can show you her true colors. Unless you are leaving out something, you are definitely not the a-hole. You are not toxic or fragile. You have standards. What she did at the restaurant and with the clubs is toxic, and it seems like she wants to show them that she has you wrapped around her finger and that you will allow her and them to do whatever they want. I wouldn't give her another chance to use you for what you can do or give to her. No one that loves you would treat you like this, friends or no friends present.
Update. Shannon's been gone for an hour now, and the breakup is official. I have the ring back. I did talk to Michelle via Facebook, and Michelle said her and Octavia were cousins of Shannon, and Michelle also said she knew the 6 and didn't care for them. Michelle didn't say much more than that, and I did meet Shannon's parents, and they both seemed to like me, and the topic of Michelle and Octavia never came up around them. None of our finances were intermingled yet, but it was planned for later this month, which won't happen. I invited 3 of our mutual friends, Casey, John, and Mike, to be here when Shannon got here. Shannon showed up and was surprised to see that we had company. I said they were here for both of our sakes. Shannon wanted to phone 3 of the 6 to come over to even things out, and I refused. And I used the club theft as a reason. Shannon sat on the couch very dramatically and then asked if I really wanted to make this public. I outright asked why she changed so much after the engagement and why she hid the existence of the 6. Shannon then went in again about how she insulates her inner circle until a partner is vetted. I called BS. I met her parents. What's more inner circle than your parents? Shannon tried to deflect, but I wouldn't have it, and I pointed out how for the last month her friends dropping by cost me nearly $500 in wine, which she, by the way, made no attempt to reimburse. I also pointed out how her trying to make me pay an 8-person dinner bill without asking me first. And she again said she wanted to show how great a guy I was, and how she clearly misjudged me and was disappointed in my attitude. And then I asked about the clubs, and she tried gaslighting me with, "You totally said it was okay, remember?" And I kept saying bullcrap. Mike piped in, and he knew the clubs were a gift from my dad, and I was highly protective of them. He too called BS, and that's when Shannon turned her attention to Mike and John, saying, "Isn't he getting forgetful lately? Don't you remember when he forgot about that one date?" And neither was buying it. I finally said that forget postponing the wedding or canceling the engagement. The entire relationship is going to end if she isn't going to be straight with me. Shannon made a very long, exaggerated sigh. She took off the ring and dropped it on the coffee table. And she got up to leave and said, "You're never going to find someone as good as me," and to send her stuff to her apartment. She left, and Casey, John, and Mike were totally stunned. All I could say was, "Believe me now?" And we ordered pizza and are waiting for it to arrive now. I am still utterly shocked and confused by Shannon's attitude, and I'm sure the heartbreak will come next, but right now I'm just kind of numb. And finally, in the comment section, one user said, "OP, your ex told you that you will never find anyone like me." Well, I think that's the point. So, first and foremost, I would like to say that the name OP actually used was Sharon in the story, but I got 2 Shannons in and realized it was Sharon, and I was like, well, I'm in too deep now, so we're using Shannon. So, oopsie daisy. Also, another thing, you can't see his words, but OP is so well written. We get so many stories where people don't know what a comma is, and OP loves using commas. God bless him. But as for the story, yeah, she's crazy. She took the mask off, let's be honest. She couldn't give him a straight answer because, well, she doesn't think straight. She's insane. But also, she's kind of stupid, right? She took the mask off before the wedding, before it was official, right? Like, you don't, like, her plan can be foiled at the engagement phase. You can't say, "Aha, you're stuck with me now," when you're not even married and fully committed. She's stupid. Sorry, Sharon, your plan failed. Also, OP didn't mention, I'm not sure if he met Octavia and the other girl multiple times, but there was the whole cousins thing.
So was that never mentioned upon the first meeting? Like, I thought that was a little shady. But ultimately, she's gone and out, and they're eating pizza now, and I want some pizza. Would you guys like some pizza? I will order a pizza, and it will be here before the video ends. Anyway, next story.
Story number 14. It happened to me. 30K gone. Well, we were supposed to close on our first home this upcoming Tuesday, and today we received an email stating closing was ready to go, and that the closing costs were ready to be wire transferred. The emails, wiring instructions, address, and names from our title company were all the same. Sent the money at 1 p.m. and noticed the scam at around 8 p.m. Based on all the posts on this sub, I know there's no hope. But now we can't afford to buy the house, and it's just absolutely devastating. I already called the bank, police, and did the FBI complaint, and I'm just so upset, and we feel like idiots. Update. I've seen enough comments about what I should have done, and I'm getting comments about how obviously the emails and instructions couldn't have been the same. Well, obviously they weren't, but they looked almost identical. I don't need advice on what I should have done. I need advice on steps I can take now, and to warn upcoming homebuyers of the things I didn't know as a young woman. Update. Today, my husband and I got 28K back of the 30K that we had sent to a scammer. The FBI ended up calling us and saying they were doing some kill chain of sorts. It was a lot of chaos and anxiety for us, and we're ready to have a mental break. And we were also able to purchase the house. Hope my story helped others. Never wire money. What I did was I filed a police report with the FBI before 24 hours had passed, and also filed a claim with my bank. Reached out to the intelligence for good organization, and they helped me as well. I kept blowing up the receiving bank, but they told me they could give me no information, and they also weren't responding to my bank. I filed a consumer complaint form, and that's when things got set in motion. And from there, I just kept emailing back and forth, basically harassing them until I had some answers.
So, I've never thought to call or contact or file a complaint with the FBI for anything in my life, but I guess my tax dollars are paying for them to hide alien secrets from me. Or pardon me, that's the CIA. How does the Pentagon lose that much money? I don't know. But as for this story, I guess the FBI is what you gotta do. And I've been in situations, not where I've lost $30,000, but I've had issues with companies where I've had to file a lot of complaints. And you really do at times have to keep harassing these people for them to kind of do what they're supposed to or what they should. I remember one time I had an issue with my Facebook account, and there was like a flaw / like overlooked part of their system, so I couldn't do anything. So I had to email the district attorney, like fill out a form for my state, and then the district attorney contacted Meta and be like, hey, you guys need to talk to Kevin because he has an issue. And I was like, wow, why can't Facebook be helpful? But yeah, sometimes you just gotta spam and annoy people. But good for OP, and I'm glad that she got her money back. Anyway, next story. Story number 15. Friend's entitled girlfriend thinks she gets a special treatment because she's vegan. I'm organizing my graduation party, and I contacted a restaurant to have dinner with my friends and family. One of my friends is bringing his girlfriend too, which is not a problem, but she's a handful. She's vegan but eats seafood, because fish don't know they exist yet. And I'm not one to judge someone's choices, but I'm pretty sure that's not the definition of vegan. But that's another story. I informed my guests that the restaurant will accommodate any food restrictions, which includes my vegan guest and another friend who has celiac disease. So, this entitled girl replied that everyone should accommodate her dietary restrictions and eat the seitan-based plate that she wanted to order, which is made of gluten, the protein you can't have if you have celiac, and I told her that she will be able to eat whatever she wants. But that will apply to the other people with different diets, especially the one who can't have seitan. Her reply was that my friend with celiac shouldn't be accommodated because she's just being a spoiled baby and not saving the planet like she is by eating vegan. I respect vegan people very much, and it's a great choice for many different reasons, but telling someone it's better to destroy their intestines than eating a non-vegan meal is not it. Then in the comments section, one user said, okay, first off, 1, she's not vegan, she's pescatarian. 2, she's a hypocrite.
And then user 2 commented and said,
on behalf of people with colics and vegetarians / vegans the world over, this pescatarian bag can shove off. She is asking for some actual ethical vegetarian to start quizzing her on trawlers, ocean waste from fishing lines, and the environmental disaster of fish farms. We all make compromises under capitalism, and no diet is perfect and ethical with zero impact. And you're not wrong with destroy their intestines. I would be violently ill for days. But my friend who also has celiacs would be in the hospital with epileptic seizures. This very entitled person really needs to be a little more respectful.
Update. So, a couple of people asked for an update, so here we are. I told my friend what was going on with his girlfriend, and he apologized and told me she was just finding excuses to complain like she always does, and that she doesn't really care about what other people eat. Also, I have the feeling that they are not going to last a lot more as a couple, and anyway, he tried to reason with her and she calmed down. I celebrated my graduation today, and she was actually very nice to me and congratulated me 1,000 times. She's not bad at all when she's in a good mood, but her mood is very unpredictable, I noticed. We had the meal and she loved it. She's a very picky eater, so I was surprised to see her pleased with the food. But what matters is that everyone else enjoyed the day. Also, I found out recently she got food poisoning from eating like 30 plus oysters in one sitting at a buffet, which I found pretty ironic despite being sorry for her. For those who didn't believe this story could be real, I'm glad you never had to deal with people who are always pissed off for some reason. Hopefully you're always surrounded by people who are chill about what you eat or don't eat. She ate 30 plus oysters? What? This reminds me of that viral video from a while ago where some woman recorded going on a first date with a guy and ordered like 20, 30, maybe 40, 50 oysters and just slurped them down. She's like, yummy, delicious. I'm like, girl, it's a first date. What's his name? Ask him what his hobbies are. She's like, oh, more oysters, please, waiter. That poor boy. I'm pretty sure I actually think in the video he just left at some point. That's unhealthy. And as for the girl in the story, she's kind of dumb and a little unstable, but you know what? That's not OP's problem, and that's not what the story's about. Anyway, next story. Story number 16. Am I the a-hole for my response to my boyfriend's ultimatum over audiobooks? My boyfriend and I have been together for around 3 years, and we've had a pretty easygoing relationship. No big fights or anything until now, which is why I'm questioning myself so much. So, I listen to audiobooks, not erotic ones, though I do partake in audio-only adult content sometimes, because, and this is important later, I have a thing for nice voices. But somehow someone just reading smut off a page feels weird for me to listen to. And no judgment to anyone else, of course, but it's just not my thing. My boyfriend has recently gotten a bug up his ass about me listening to them, especially when he's home, even though I always use headphones and do my best not to disturb him. Also, before anyone says it, my Audible account comes directly out of my own bank account. He has no reason to think it will affect his finances. Anyway, he only ever gave little snide remarks until the last time, so I let it go. Most recently, I had been making us dinner and cleaning up behind myself as I did it. And because he was playing a video game, and I get bored doing those kinds of things without something else to think about, I turned on my favorite audiobook and picked up where I had been listening the week before. I didn't realize he was in the kitchen until he jerked the cord on my headphones and asked if I was doing it again, and I asked what he was talking about, and he just sighed and said that he needed to talk to me. We sat down, and I will admit I was pretty pissed that he had jerked on my headphones and not super willing to listen to anything right then. Another reason I might be an a-hole. And he said that it really bothered him when I listened to audiobooks from a man's perspective because he knows about my voice thing and that it makes him uncomfortable. I asked why, and he said that he couldn't get it out of his head that I was thinking sexual things about the characters in that, and that along with the romantic elements, it made him really upset, and felt almost like I wasn't fully committed to him. I asked him if he realized I was listening to a book for teens, written by a literal Mormon, and that none of the books I listened to have smut. He said that it didn't matter and started getting angry again, which just made me angrier, and he dropped the ultimatum that he wanted me to stop or else we would need to break up. I was so pissed at this point that I just shrugged and said, gladly, the minute you stop watching adult content, I'll never touch any of it again, which had him pissed because he never claimed anything about adult content. Only the romantic and sexual parts of the books that I listened to. And I said that if he was allowed to make ultimatums of favorite pastimes, why can't I? Then I asked if he would rather give up video games since that's closer to what audiobooks mean to me. He ended up just saying, effing forget it, and then he went to bed and has been pissed at me since. I spoke to my friends about the situation and got mixed answers, so I wanted to try with strangers as well. Thanks. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said,
This is a big red flag to me. Is he so insecure that he can't stand the idea of you listening to another man? You weren't even listening to anything provocative when he did this, and he had that kind of reaction? Where's all of his anger coming from? The fact that he dropped an ultimatum on books, for F's sake, or breaking up is insane to me. That seems like such an odd thing for him to want to have control over. You're wearing headphones, not listening to it on speakerphone, and you're minding your own business, and he has the audacity to be upset that you're doing that? Personally, I would cut ties. But if you feel like he's a good partner to you in other aspects and he isn't controlling about other things you do, like what you wear, who you hang out with, etc., then maybe try talking it out with him when he's calmed down.
He did try to explain that he felt as if I reacted to the romantic parts in ways I don't react to him, which almost made sense, but then all I can think is, yeah, of course I do. This kind of romantic thing doesn't exist in real life, and I don't expect it to. But to hear about it is enough to make me blush or laugh because it's cute. I've never expected him to be an over-the-top romantic. I don't think I would enjoy it in real life, and it would more than likely overwhelm me, but I do like to hear about it, I guess. This part does make me feel a little bad, because at the time I was so angry about the headphone pulling, and I don't know why it set me off so bad. No one has ever done it to me before, but for some reason it had me pissed. I couldn't even react to it like I should have, and honestly, maybe I should have asked to wait, the more I think about it. Then user 2 commented and said,
Girl, he put his hands on you. He's getting mad over fictional characters and stories. I'd think long and hard about what you want to do going forward.
And finally, user 3 commented and said,
He is weirdly hung up on this voice thing. Pleasant voices are soothing and relaxing, etc. It's not like you stopped cooking dinner to masquerade spread eagle on the counter while moaning the narrator's voice. Jeez, I feel your ultimatum is fair. But anywho, let's get to the important part. What author are you talking about?
The Midnight Sun audiobook. And I know, Twilight in 2024, but Jake Abel pulls off making Edward both a scary 100-year-old vampire and an eternally teenaged boy in love, and it's fun. I love it. I don't care if it's bad. I adored the original series when I was younger, and then this one dropped, and New Moon stopped being my favorite of the series. Update. So, it's been a while. I didn't think I would update because the original update would have been mostly us talking and working things out, agreeing that whenever he felt insecure, he could tell me, and I could focus my attention on him for a while. And it worked really great. That is, until I found out that he had been effing his coworker, that is. I don't have the details, and I don't want the details. But he admitted it to it in the end, so he did it. That's enough. He wanted to work it out and apologized and begged for a second chance, but honestly, the idea that he said a word to me about an audiobook about Edward freaking Cullen while he was getting strange on the side, it killed any opportunity for forgiveness I had inside of me. It was so ridiculous, and I laugh thinking about it now. And it's been a month since we broke up. Like, it makes me feel insane. It is so funny. He was yelling at me for listening to a book about Mormon vampires while he was cheating on me. I cannot make this crap up. And 100 points to whoever said projection the first time I posted. I can't remember if it was a comment or a message, but you were right, and I wish I had a cookie for you. Anyway, thanks for the help. Even if the relationship is a bust now, I really do appreciate all of you. So, first off, and most importantly, this man just does not align with what I believe in because he is anti-narrator. We don't do that here. I love the sound of voices. I love accents. Not like in a weird way, but I love accents too, so I can relate to OP. Also, I didn't consume Twilight. My sister was a High School Musical kid. She didn't get into it. But they're Mormons? I didn't know that. But I mean, at the start of the final update, I was like, okay, cool. They're working it out. They're talking it out like adults. That's fine. That's good. I think he did have a bit of a weird reaction, but if that was like the only big problem, then yeah, whatever. You know, you can make it work. And then he was getting wacky on the side with his freaking coworker. Oh boy. But you know what? He's gone. We support narrators and Mormon Twilight and vampires and sexy voices and accents. I don't really know how to end this one, but also the pizza has arrived. Would you like to know what I got? I got Hawaiian. I also got a plain cheese one because you can't go wrong with the classics. Then I got a pepperoni and sausage one because I feel like that's a good one. And then I got one for people who just want vegetables. It's got like, I don't know, like mushrooms or something. What do vegetable pizza lovers like? Broccoli or something? I don't know. Whatever vegetables you want on pizza, it's there, okay? Take a slice. You can only get one, all right? I only got 4 pizza boxes, and we're going to have to share it with a couple thousand people, so first come, first served. But anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Have a really good day, and